And welcome to the March 31st Town of Garner Town Council work session. Good to see everyone here tonight. We'll start tonight off with the calling of the roll by our Deputy Town Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger.
I'm here.
Councilmember Stallings.
Here.
Councilmember Vance.
Here.
Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
The mayor has duly informed the council of his absence this evening. I'd like to make a motion to excuse his absence.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Matthews, seconded by Mr. Vance. All in favor?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Next item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Do you have a motion to approve tonight's agenda for the work session?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Stallings, seconded by Councilman Vance. Any discussion on the adoption of the agenda this evening? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. We have no presentations this evening. Next item of business is Bennett North Apartments, presented by Assistant Manager John Hodges.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. We have an item on the agenda tonight that council had asked to defer to tonight's meeting. This is a request for a resolution authorizing affordable housing bond issuance for an affordable housing apartment complex. Information is in your packet. I'll be glad to answer any questions if I can help with that.
Any council members have questions for Mr. Hodges?
I'd like to make a comment if I may, sir.
Matthews.
Is anybody here from the developer tonight? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. This has been interesting and an ongoing project, and I won't drag it out. I just want to make a few brief comments that initially the project I was fine with. I supported and voted for it. Then we come back and did wanting to not pay the Garner taxes, but still wanted a police and fire and all the services come with it. And where everybody else in Garner has to pay their property taxes, me and people on limited incomes, and some people in $500,000 houses, and some in $200,000 houses or less. But my biggest hangup, and we're talking about workforce housing, you know, in Garner Tri-and-Point Apartments, we've got like 176 Habitat, 450 when finished. Chadwick Senior, I've got 40 units over there. Timber Springs of 75. And we participate also in Preserving Homes program, which our last contribution was $100,000, which allows, if an elderly has a house and it's paid for, but they got limited income and the roof is bad, they need some work on it, this money pays for that, so they don't come out of their pocket. And the intent is to let them stay in their home, and they've earned it all their life. And plus, we've got a lot of older apartments at it's much less rate, but it has come down to this, that this development where it's turned now that the taxpayer is Garner are going to have to cover your cost of services, and I have a big hard time with that. And we represent the people, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and I know we all have a hard time with this, and everybody can speak for themselves. So, but people of Garner, we're here fighting for you. Thank you for the time.
Singleton.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Matthews. Our concern has been raised not only in Garner, but in other towns and on news reports regarding tax-free projects that was passed in state legislature several years ago. Mr. Hodges, on page 16 of our agenda there were the proposed supplemental accommodations from Bennett Apartments North. Is that still active, or is that just something that's included in the agenda?
I'm sorry, Ms. Jones.
I was going to suggest that would be a question for the developer's attorney.
Okay. Can he come to the microphone and speak?
Mm-hmm.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Martin Wharf, home address is 313 Bonniewood Drive in Cary, North Carolina, formerly a resident of Garner and Sheldon Place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners for the opportunity to speak. I know that's a little out of line, but I'm happy to answer your questions. Some of the questions that you have raised about the project are certainly those that may go to the General Assembly and the ability for developers to create the opportunity for limited income housing in certain areas. But the town of Gardner has approved a special use permit, and the question before the board tonight is whether they will agree to the notice to the Wake County Housing Authority's bond referendum. And we believe that that is an up or down vote here, and it is a sort of a yes/no question, but there are opportunities for, if this were a rezoning issue that may come before the board later, to where there are opportunities to do that, that there may be sort of a dimmer switch approach where we could look at other opportunities to work with the town on those special use permits or rezoning. But this particular vote is an up or down vote.
I understand that, but my question is, are the 3 items listed as proposed supplemental accommodations still something we can discuss, not tonight, but at a later date?
At a later date, yes.
That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Mr. Stallings,
No comment this time.
Mr. Vance.
Just a short statement, and in reference to what transpired here was a unique situation in which this project changed and is not in its the number of dwelling places or the configuration of the SUP. However, it changed in the financing of it, which was very unique for us, and it was one that caught our eye, particularly because we are working in the area of affordable housing, and as we as a council say, we support for affordable housing. It's a matter of how we do it, and also I would say thank you for going back out to the public and to present this to the public, to have the opportunity to look at the proposed affordable housing development versus the one that was market rate. And in looking at that, I know that it reveals several things. One is that we found out about the Blue Ridge loophole there, that could impact future projects, and it's imperative now, since we are looking at having our legislative liaison talk to our delegation, it's imperative that we express our concerns about what this can do to future projects becoming before us, and preventing this from happening again, knowing our current economic situation within the country and how it may impact our taxes and things of that nature going forward. Things of this nature can be detrimental to the town unless we're able to plan this out and look at it strategically. And this one caught us off guard. But my key thing is here now is to look at it from a perspective of how do we prevent this from happening, how we are part of the planning process early, and how we can maintain our current level of passion for affordable housing while at the same time not impacting the residents in a negative way. So we want to make sure that happens, because more developments that come and use that loophole, it can be detrimental to the financial stability of the town. Just want to make this statement, and that's all I have.
Mr. Matthews.
Just one follow-up, 2 items, and I think, as we talked earlier, realistically, sir, this is not affordable housing. It's going to be the same cost as apartments and people across the street. And secondly, the lack of those taxes where we pay $100,000 to people with the Preserving Homes programs to make up for what you guys are going to be doing. It's got to be made up somewhere. It's not a free ride, and if I was in your shoes, that's good money. I would jump all over it. Hey, I'm not going to lose anything. So, but don't worry, we'll get through it. People are going to pay for it, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Wake County Housing Authority have any input or feedback on?
I don't believe they're represented tonight.
Okay. All right. I know there are council comments. I'd accept a motion to take action on resolution 2026-2687.
So
Could I
moved.
request a roll call vote, Mr. President?
Let's Get our second first. Motion made by Mr. Vance,
Second.
second by Mr. Singleton. Any other discussion by council members? Comments? Hearing none. Mr. Matthews has requested a roll call vote. I will start on this end with Mr. Matthews.
Nay.
Mr. Singleton.
Very hesitant, yes.
Mr. Stallings.
Aye.
Mr. Vance.
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's a 4-1. All right. Motion carries. Our next item of business this evening is our legislative agenda update from, again, Mr. Hodges.
The mayor and council members, some time ago, we brought you a draft legislative agenda that we were proposing to use for the short session that is coming up to begin soon. We have spent some time as staff consulting with the League of Municipalities and others to bring back some edits to this. So before you tonight in your packet, you will see that there is a revised version for your review tonight. A little bit of order that we've changed, a reorganization. Our 2026 priority initiatives are at the top of this. There has been some work done by a House Select Committee on tax reform that, among other things, has been talking about the Blue Ridge loophole that was mentioned previously, as well as some other statewide tax reforms. There have been 4 recommendations that have so far come to light from that, 2 of which we believe are appropriate to support: closing the Blue Ridge loophole and then broadening eligibility for property tax relief programs, which balances the impact on revenues. There are 2 things that have come out of that committee's work that we believe is appropriate to oppose, and that is constitutional amendment to cap property tax increases and limit local control of property tax rates, and tamper with property risk reassessment timelines and methodology. So staff is proposing to strongly support the first 2, strongly oppose the second 2. The third item on your bullet there is not new to us. It is supporting a legislative fix to unintended consequences for the down zoning limitations in State Law 2024-57. We've talked extensively about these impacts and have actually had to go back and make amendments to UDO or changes to readopt UDO amendments that were impacted by this. Since the drafting of this, the league has let us know that there is a Senate bill that was proposed, Senate 587, they believe has the appropriate levels of fix for this. And so with your approval, we will add a support statement under this to actually support or encourage passing of the Senate Bill 587 so that that can take effect and reverse those the impacts of the downzoning bill. The other bullets under our priority initiatives were carried over from the beginning of the biennium session. We used those last year in the beginning of the session, so there's no changes to those. We continue to include local initiatives, and the one that we're focusing on is one that you've seen before, which is to request a charter amendment to increase settlement authority for the town manager. And through some research Ms. Jones has done, we have added that has been unchanged since 1977. So I think that's a good indicator that a lot of things have changed since then and opportunities for us to readdress those. We have slightly reordered our next section to oppose threats to municipal authority and responsiveness to local issues. We've added property tax reform, and we've brought down the 2 items from the top that we were opposing so that they're there within our opposition section. We have taken what was previously listed as building codes and inspections in our previous draft. We have added planning, and that is because we've kept the first bullet, which is our ongoing continued desire to see building code changes move forward and implementing new codes and not make decisions that would risk the safety and welfare of our structures and the people that live in them. We've added a second bullet to oppose bills which impede local government authority over zoning development so municipalities can continue to implement local preferences, protect property values, and ensure safe quality of life for residents and businesses. So that note that was mentioned previously in our legislative agenda, but we think reordering these and regrouping them makes a stronger statement of our what we are concerned about. And the last section are things we're supporting. And right now, this includes the North Carolina League's 2025-2026 goals that they adopted at the beginning of the biennium last year. And so those are included again as we included them last year. So those are the proposed changes we have for the legislative agenda. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Would also just let you know that we'd also seek your approval to place this on the April 7th agenda so that the council can adopt it and then share it with our legislative delegation ahead of the session that is scheduled to begin later in April. I'll be glad to answer questions about our legislative agenda. And then also we've got Sam Bridges, our lobbyist, who's here tonight, and he's got some updates he wanted to make, but I was going to see if you have any questions about our legislative update first.
Any questions for Mr. Hodges from council? We'll start here with Mr. Vance.
Not for Mr. Hodges.
Mr. Stallings?
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, we will add the citation for the support of Senate Bill 587, and we'll add this to your agenda for April 7th for adoption. Yes, sir.
I do have one expansion. I think we mentioned, if you go back, there's some support for public education on there, loosely worded. And this may impede our ability to get this on the consent agenda, but I'd like us to look at the North Carolina State Constitution, Article 9, Section 9, where it actually guarantees free tuition at our public universities. And as the legislature has reduced tuition at several of our public universities, but not all of them, I kind of want to, the cost of college is a barrier for a lot of individuals, and they assume a lot of debt, even as an in-state student. So if we could look at that and see if there's a way we can advocate for tuition reduction in our other public universities so that we're continuing to honor that constitutional right, that would be great.
Okay. If I may, one of the things that we will do throughout the rest of this session is we will periodically bring back updates for council as bills are introduced that we feel like we should either support or oppose. So there will be tweaks to this that we will reissue this as the session goes on. Mr. Dillinger, would it be okay for us to adopt as is for April 7th, just so we can get it in the hands of our delegation before the session and then bring that to you as an amendment throughout the session?
I think that would work. I think I've been hearing a lot of feedback from folks, and we always have a commitment to education and public education in the community. And I think oftentimes we feel like as a town, they're not our schools, but they're our kids. And so I think we need to, as a council, sort of look at that lens again as to what can we do from a legislative perspective, what can we do within the community to support our public schools here in Gardner. So I think there's a lot of interest in galvanizing the town and the council and local communities into strengthening our schools in Gardner and the opportunities for our students once they graduate from our schools. So we can work on that
Okay.
a little further. But yeah, we definitely want to have something in hand for our folks.
Thank you. I think the timing of that would be important for us to be able to have that to our delegation as early as possible.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, council members. I'll turn it over to Sam to come up and give us some updates on his perspectives on our legislative efforts.
Good evening, everybody. So I wanted to first give you some context about the nonprofit loophole. And I shared an article in my journal with you all in March that came out earlier in March. Let me just read a little bit of this. So this came out of a state law that basically creates a rent a nonprofit structure. For-profit apartment complex owners can hand over fractions of ownerships to nonprofits to qualify for generous tax exemptions. Exemptions in Wake County have nearly doubled from 66 in 2020 to 136 in 2025. The exemptions for low and moderate income housing account for a projected $776 million reduction in taxable property value, the equivalent of $4 million in revenue for the county. So this law was adopted in 2010 to help increase the supply of low and moderate income housing by giving the owners a break on property taxes. The loophole was created in 2013 when the Court of Appeals ruled that Cane Creek Village, a low-income project in Mitchell County, up in the mountains, one of the 100 that I've been to. A low-income housing project in Mitchell County owned by a for-profit limited liability company but controlled by a nonprofit was entitled to a property tax exemption. Northwestern Housing Enterprises, the nonprofit in that case, owned only 0.1% of Blue Ridge Housing, which held the title to the property. A for-profit partnership, North Carolina Equity Fund Limited Partnership, owned 99.9% of Blue Ridge Housing. Although the loophole has existed since 2013, apartment owners have begun taking advantage of it in greater numbers starting in 2023 after several law firms and real estate brokers have begun marketing it to apartment owners. That gives you some context about the loophole. This is one of the things Manager Miller and I will go talk with Representative Paré about in April. She said she was interested in this and was concerned about it and would talk to us about it along with the issues regarding the Property Tax Committee. As you may know, Representative Paré, who represents one or two precincts in the town of Garner in the southern part of Garner, is one of the 3 co-chairs of the Property Tax Reduction Committee. So, and let me give you some other context about revenues in general. I can get to my cards here. So you may know that in 2015, 2016, the tax rate in North Carolina was a flat 5.75%. This is personal income taxes. In 2017 and 2018, it was 5.5%. 2019 to 21, it came down to 5.25%. As you know, this has been the legislators' policy to bring it it's come way down over the past 10 years. And as you can imagine, how it has flattened out the budget. 2022, the rate is 5%. 2023, the rate was 4.75%. 2024, again, personal income tax rate is 4.5%. This year, 2025, is 4.25%. Next year, it is scheduled to be 4%. And there are a couple of other steps down. So the consensus forecast came out last week, done by the Office of State Management and Budget and the Fiscal Research Division. And one of the things that controls that tax rate is in the law, there is a trigger that if the revenue comes in above roughly $33 billion in 2025-26, the tax rate is going to come down further in 2027. Again, there's another trigger set in that law that would be roughly $34 billion for 2026-2027. If revenue comes in above that trigger, the rate will come down, personal income tax rate again, 2028, to 3%. So that is what has happened to revenue in the state of North Carolina over the past 10 years. It's come steadily down. And as you know, this year we still don't have a budget. That may change in the short session, it may not. And meantime, teacher raises, state employee raises, or nothing's being done about that. But that is the context, a substantial decrease. So in the consensus revenue forecast, it's projected to go up a little bit this year after not budgeting anything new. So it will come in at about 35 billion, and the General Assembly will have maybe $350 million to do something extra with this year. Starting next year, because of those tax rate decreases, the revenue forecast is going to decline. It's not because of the economy, but because of this tax rate decline. We've come all the way down from 6%. In 2028, we could very well be at 3%. And now to the Property Tax Reduction Committee. They've had about 4 meetings monthly since December. And as you can imagine, there are varying viewpoints. There is the viewpoint that, we need to do what we can to protect property tax revenue because it supports fire and police salaries, clean water, all those things. The other opinions are, folks on the committee are, of course, concerned about the widow or the elderly person who can't afford to pay their property taxes when they get to a certain age and don't have as much income. And that's a concern. And as you may know, there are 2 exclusions built into the law now, one for the elderly or disabled, elderly being defined as 65. I'm going to qualify for that this year. But there's an income limitation. If you make less than about $35,000, you can qualify for that exclusion. But it is a bare minimum relief. So what it means is you get to exclude maybe about $100,000 from your property tax bill. That exclusion is also available to a second category, disabled veterans who are permanently or totally disabled. And they also get that bare minimum exclusion. So the constitutional amendment is the goal to put that on the ballot during this short session, come up with the legislation to do that. But as you can imagine, and as Ms. Jones could probably tell you, the General Assembly can go ahead and do whatever they want to do with property taxes without a constitutional amendment. If they can revoke our charter, they can set the property tax rate. And as you can imagine, throughout North Carolina, there are varying different situations in every county. I've been all the way to Graham County, the most westernmost poor county in North Carolina in the mountains, who has virtually no tax base. And then there's Raleigh and Charlotte. So, and as you can imagine, the rural counties have to set their tax rate a little higher than we may have to try to come up with some revenue to support their limited budget. And as you can imagine, their budget is very limited. I've been in 100 courthouses. Some of them are very nice, and some of them are, I think, indicative of the lack of wealth in the county. Same with their schools. So that again, I've spoken with the folks at the League of Municipalities, and they encouraged us, and I've of course shared this with Ms. Miller, that since Erin represents part of Garner, and she's one of the co-chairs of this committee, they would love for us to spend a lot of time with her explaining our position and also talking to her about our budget process, our challenges, our opportunities, and our pressures, so that she knows going in our viewpoint. So I will continue to follow that work of that committee, and the legislature will come back on April 21st, and we'll see if they do anything else other than the constitutional amendment. The other thing I wanted to tell you about just was about the county commissioners. When you saw those two new folks on your ballot, you may have seen in March, the county commissioners now are going to have 2 more at-large seats. So they're going to have 2 more folks sitting at the table. Would you have enjoyed that, Mr. Matthews?
Oh, no.
2 more people talking. So that is what those 2 seats, you may have seen, I think in the Democratic primary, a lot of people running for those 2 seats. So 2 new at-large seats, bringing the total from 7 to 9. There are also 4 other seats on the ballot this year, including our District 2. If y'all have met Ms. Jackson, she is our fairly new county commissioner, but District 1, 2, 3, and 7 are also on the ballot. And so what has changed is used to the county commissioners were running countywide. Now they've changed it so that they're like the school board members and they're running district by district. Districts are roughly the same, but we have the 2 new folks sitting at the county commissioners table, see if they can lengthen those meetings a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Council members have any questions for Mr. Bridges?
Thank you for the briefing. Appreciate that. As it relates to the Blue Ridge loophole,
Yes.
is there a strategy that the council can put into place that could possibly help with strengthening the argument as to why this loophole needs to be closed? Any support from the council?
Yes.
I'm asking a question.
Well, tell me the question again. I'm not.
Oh, the question is in reference to the Blue Ridge loophole. That's going to come up in the short session as well. Any type of strategy that the council can assist with in helping to try to close that loophole?
Sure, absolutely. And John can answer that too. So I know y'all have been having discussions with the property owners and developers about this already, right? You want to go ahead and answer?
Mr. Vance, I think the manager's office, we're already working on some strategies to do that. I think the work that the House Committee is doing is the best place for us to focus those efforts, and we'll continue to do that. I think this has, there's a lot of attention on this countywide. The impacts all over Wake County are significant. We have some properties, in addition to ones that have been discussed tonight, but there's other properties that are applying to use this strategy that are already existing properties. Far fewer in Garner than in other parts of the county, but nonetheless, it will be very impactful to all of Wake County. So I think Ms. Miller is working on a committee with the league. She'll continue to do that. We'll continue to communicate with our representatives, but that will be our focus going into the session that's coming back. Does that answer your question, Mr.
That answers my
Vance?
question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Stallings, do you have a question?
Yes. So in terms of the Constitution, and this is for Mr. Bridge, in terms of the constitutional amendment, I know you mentioned that they could take action without
Yes.
having a constitutional amendment. Are we hearing any timelines in regards to the constitutional amendment during short session or them taking action otherwise?
Yeah, I think what you're asking is the legislature wants to try to get that on the ballot this fall. And so it'll be on your November ballot.
So I guess my question was, is there any, are you hearing, because you said they've been meeting since December. I know they have a meeting coming up on April 15th. Do you know a timeline in terms of the piece of legislation?
Timeline for having it heard in the General Assembly?
Yes.
Well, the short session starts in April, middle of April, and it goes as long as it goes. Could end the end of June, usually goes through August. So, but as I said, that will be top of mind for all of us.
Singleton, you have any questions or comments?
In regards to that, Mr. Bridges, they'll have a end date where they'll have to get that so it can be put on the ballot. So if you can find out when that was, or if Mr. Hodges knows, whatever it may be. I know candidates can file through July,
Right.
but I mean, is that the end date? To be on the November ballot? That's just, I mean, will they move fast enough?
No, right.
I
We'll
just-
work on that, and as well as the property tax committee issues too.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Matthews?
Thanks for the report and quite informative. And we got our work cut out, but at least we've got a unified effort here. Sounds like between all the municipalities in Wake County and probably statewide also.
Right.
So y'all hanging in.
Mayor Pro Tem and members of council, if I could just add a little bit more detail. As you're aware, we've already reached out to the Garner delegation with some initial impacts of what this looks like in terms of the town's budget. I'm serving on a committee with other managers across the state, working with the league to pull together our information so that it's very clear the impacts on local government. And so we're working through that now. My understanding is that they're expecting this legislation to move pretty quickly. So the next meeting in April, I think they're looking to be able to move it forward for consideration in the short session, which would take it through, late to mid-spring and work on getting it on the ballot for this November. So they're on a pretty quick timeline to move forward, in particular with the constitutional amendment side of it. So the work that we're doing on behalf of the town and sharing information and data, working with the league, working with Mr. Bridges is going to be very important over the next few months.
Thank you. And I'd just say that, investing in dirt is not investing in our community. And it's really inspiring to see this all hands approach from residents and council and staff around this issue and other municipalities, because our residents, when they move here, expect a certain level of service delivery. They want to feel safe. They want nice parks. They want services. And we have staff that want to provide those services. And fundamentally, we need to understand that part of that investment is you want to be a part of building this community up, not just extracting out of it what you will. So it's good to see the collaboration and cooperation across so many levels of government, and hopefully our elected officials will heed and pay attention to these concerns, particularly as we transition into our budget discussion. There are costs associated with growth, and our existing tax base is the foundation for that. When you start chipping away at what we already have, it makes it very difficult for us to maintain the quality of life that we expect and want to provide as elected officials, and staff want to effectuate in their daily work. So thank you all so much for the work y'all are doing and bringing people together. Thanks for leadership and being involved with the General Assembly's committees, and continue to engage them and the rest of our municipal partners on this. It's going to make a big difference, but only if we come together and let them know this affects everyone. So thank you all so much for your time and commitment. Our next item of business is an update for the fiscal year 27 budget development, and our budget director, Sarah Warren, will lead us through that conversation.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, before Ms. Warren starts the presentation, just wanted to give a little context and background for the presentation you're going to hear this evening. During your retreat in February, we started talking about the FY27 budget and some of the opportunities and challenges with that, with the information that we knew at the time. And so one of the things we agreed to as part of our budget process this spring was to develop an opportunity to check in again with council before the recommended budget comes out in May, to update council on any new information that we would have that would shape the recommended budget coming forward. It also provides an opportunity for council to provide any comments and feedback directionally on expectations for the recommended budget, which will be presented to you in early May. So tonight provides that opportunity for that check-in that we agreed to share information of things that have been updated or now we have firmer numbers on, but also to share with you some new things that we've learned that we are still working through and reviewing in terms of putting the pieces of the recommended budget. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Warren, and she's going to kick us off.
Yeah. So good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. As Ms. Miller indicated, this is just a check-in on where we are in the budget process, update you on some information and developments that we've gotten thus far. We'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing on the economy side and how that may or may not impact the 27 budget. You just heard some legislative updates, so we'll briefly discuss that. And then we'll get into what we're seeing with the current or the FY27 working budget, and we'll have opportunity for questions and comments and discussion. These next few slides are the slides that we typically share with you. Nothing has changed on this one from your February retreat. But it is important to note the big jump from our revaluation in FY25 that captured the growth that we were seeing in Garner. But prior to that, we have steady growth, and then we've had steady growth over the last few years as far as our assessed value, while our tax rate has remained somewhat steady. Again, looking at our sales tax year over year, this also has not changed since you saw it in February. Sales tax continues to be one of our more volatile revenue sources. It really is market and consumer driven. We've been fortunate in Garner in that we continue to see increases related to that, but we anticipate some level of slowing. We also talked to you about some of the changes related to sales tax and how we are receiving money from the per capita. That resets every August, and it did reset this past year, and we will start to see a decline just related to that. And then here are historical revenue trends over year. We have made some budget amendments since your February retreat, so you will see a little change on that FY26 amended. But it's important to note here, the largest revenue source, more than 50% of the total revenues are our property taxes. So we are continuing to monitor everything that's happening in the economy and how that will impact the budget. As many of you are aware, we're seeing gas prices increase. There is a sense that could push other indicators higher, and consumers will start feeling that in other areas of their day-to-day living. We have here some gas prices, although I think for many of us, just within the last couple of days, we may be seeing some difference, some even higher prices at the pump. We do have some indicators of what our wholesale costs are for the town, and that may impact future fuel prices that would impact our budget. And then we also are starting to see the real estate market is softening a little bit. So here we are looking at an average home price has decreased a little bit over the past year. So we are seeing some of these things that will impact our growth. You just heard from Mr. Hodges and Mr. Bridger. We are continuing to monitor what's happening at the state level with the property tax reforms. The General Assembly has assembled the tax committee to look at property tax reduction reform. The items here that could really continue to impact the 27 budget and any future budget would be the proposed legislation on the modifications to low and moderate income housing property tax exemptions, as well as the constitutional amendment. So we are really, you all heard all the work that's being done on those, but any changes there could really impact what what we're able to do with our revenues in the future. Let's move into where we are with our working budget. Our current working budget revenue is $90.6 million. We do anticipate an update from the county within the next couple of weeks. That is pretty standard. We usually get an update on any after any appeals have been settled, as well as some of the tax exempt filings. There should be some settlements there, so we'll have a better picture from the county on what property taxes will look like for FY27. We've also made a few changes in our base budget. The first, this is not a change, but we did want to call it to your attention. Every year, the state treasurer's office releases the employer contribution for retirement. Those costs continue to go up. It's usually about 1% or so every year for both the Elgers and Leo retirement systems. So we put the rates for FY27 here, as well as what that cost looks like. And I'll show you in a slide just the increases every year. But the employer retirement contribution, we get that information in the fall, and we do build it into our base budget. So that amount is included in the $90.6 million. We've also received some updates on our town insurance and workers' compensation. And so that total is about $327,000. That would cover the town and fire for both those categories. We presented in February estimates on the health benefit increases. We've now locked those in with InChip. So the total increase there is about $222,000. And lastly, we do want to talk to you a little bit about fire apparatus. Now that the fire department is part of the town is now taking over the purchase and replacement of fire apparatus. And if anybody knows, those are very expensive pieces of equipment. They will not impact the FY27 budget, but there will be an impact to FY28. And that's also a new item that you'll see as part of the budget. Myself, Mr. David Beck, and our fire chief, Barrett Penny, have been working together to get these numbers settled. So I think we've gotten to a good place to be able to present some information to you today. So here are those contribution rates. You can see that in just a 7-year period, it's gone up 5% and 7% respectively to the local government retirement system and the law enforcement retirement system. We anticipate continued increases year over year related to that contribution. So looking at programming fire apparatus, FY27, we will be purchasing a pumper and heavy rescue truck. The total for both those vehicles is approximately $3.4 million. We are committing to debt financing to purchase those two vehicles that will occur in FY27. But we will not begin paying off the debt until the subsequent fiscal year. And that we expect that debt service to be about $441,000 annually. You received an item in December to look at entering into a municipal agreement with the county for apparatus replacement. That annual contribution from the county towards the apparatus replacement is $187,000. So that will be the county's contribution. They will also issue a one-time payment of approximately $411,000 for the debt that we paid off in FY26. And that was action you took in February to pay off some existing debt. So we'll be paying $441,000 annually. And of that amount, the county will pay $187,000. So the town will have to pay the difference there. Because this is a new endeavor for the town, we've not done this before, we will be utilizing Davenport to help us assist with that management and that debt financing.
A question. I have this on my list after doing a budget review. Is it possible for us to get a separate breakdown for the fire department budget in salaries, equipment, all that, and broken out from the rest of the budget. I think it was kind of a concern or observation of mine on the merger to fully realize the implications on the budget. Is it possible for us to get that broken out into its own budget and 5-year projection in capital costs? Because it sounds like some of these expenses are falling into a capital category outside of firehouses and that type of expansion.
Yeah, so we can look at providing that level of information for you.
I think the sooner rather than later would be better, I think, just given with the breadth of expenses that we have in this particular budget. Anyone else have comments on the fire at this time? Or we can, okay, thank you.
I want to remind you that when we presented the information at the retreat, we had put everything that was requested for funding in 4 categories. One was the obligation, so these are the things that we have to fund due to existing commitments. We had a classification of expectations where we're strongly recommending it because of some commitments that have been made. The demonstrated needs and service enhancements really represent what departments have requested. And the demonstrated needs are what has been identified by departments that continue to meet the service level standards, whereas service enhancements are looking at investments to expand the scope or increase the effectiveness of that service delivery. So those are the 4 categories we've grouped things in. And this was the chart that we presented in February. With one exception, we've now added the town insurance and workers' compensation to this line item. We are still working through the pay and class update, and that final amount should be available next month.
I have a question on this section, just briefly. So the health insurance increase would be a recurring expense, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Additional pay period, that's a one-time
That is a one-time expense.
expense. The pay in class would be recurring when that comes in. And what did you say the timeline was for the pay in class study information?
So I think we will be finalizing that within the month of April, and I'll have to defer to Ms. Miller on when that will come to council for review.
So the report's being finalized now. We'll have a sense of the number to plug in for the budget in April, and I anticipate the report being available in early May.
Anyone have any questions on this particular slide? No? Thank you.
So we do have a little bit of information on the classification and compensation study. As you know, Baker Tilly was hired to complete the study. The last time we did this was part of the FY24 budget. We committed to doing an update every 3 years. We are coming to an end of the project. We've completed the data collection, position review, and the market assessment, and we are currently working on the pay plan development that would be included as part of the FY27 budget. So as Ms. Miller indicated, we are hoping to finish that project up in April with a report ready in May.
So another quick question on the health insurance increase. So the increase is actually an increase above what our projection was. It's not a total increase. Is that correct?
This 222. So that is we brought to you in February, a projected rate increase that the town would absorb. This is that final amount. It would be recurring.
And it's less. When we originally put the base budget together, we were anticipating a higher rate. So when we put numbers together, so this actually, the rate that the 5.2% increase is a reduction, and we were able to plug that in as a more final number for FY27.
I guess I'm trying to figure out, did we already have a projected increase in our 5-year plan? Like, why would we observe that?
We did not. We on our salary and benefit projections, we typically include a general increase that would cover any increases seen with salaries and benefits in the 5-year projection. As we were building the base budget, We did not include an increase, but we were waiting for final numbers that have now occurred to plug those in as part of the budget.
So in our 5-year projecting, do we do annual incremental increases for this line item?
We typically do not do incremental increases for specific line items related to health insurance. We really look at a general increase for all of our salary and benefit lines as a whole.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? All right. Thank you.
Any questions on the classification and compensation study? Okay. So the second category is our expectations. So these are some items that we also presented. We are still looking at a merit adjustment, which would be up to 4% for employees. That cost is about $938,000. We mentioned at the retreat, Maria talked about the Jurgen Homestead project to meet some state standards for mothballing that building at $1 million. We also have some additional operating impacts related to the park opening of $416,000. Our fire equipment and upgrades, this is, I'll say the Jurgen Homestead project would be a one-time cost. Fire equipment and upgrades, that would be county cost shared. That $344,000 is the town's portion. It would also be a one-time cost. The Peacock Dam remediation project, again, a one-time cost. And the White Deer splash pad, these are ongoing operating impacts. Yes.
Real quick. And when I was looking at the numbers before that, the first line item was merit and market adjustments and was 1.4 million. This is just saying merit adjustment up to 4 and 938.
I think
Where the
Ms. Miller wants to take that one.
I can answer that one. So if you recall, Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger, a few years ago with our most recent pay and class study, we adopted a sort of a new compensation philosophy for staff, which looked at committing ourselves to more regular pay and class studies and implementing those studies as funding was available, the results, as well as in between the study years, looking at providing not only merit increases for employees based on performance, but an annual market adjustment. So pay and class studies in and of themselves are designed to review market needs and costs for employees and make recommendations for those adjustments as needed. So in years where we're having a pay and class study completed, the 3% market adjustment that we have been doing the last 2 years was not needed because the pay and class results and recommendations that we'll be looking to implement will cover what we need to do to make sure we're staying competitive in the market.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Singleton.
To follow up on that, pay and class update is projected on the previous slide was 1.5 million, and this has dropped to $500,000. So that $500,000 is included in the plan. But what you're saying is the pay and class update, that $500,000 has gone up to that line.
Yes. So, but we were still looking at as potentially including that has been reduced in terms of what we need for FY27.
But the pay and class update line is still the same.
It's still the same. We've still kept that in as a placeholder until we get the final results.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, similar questions on these. So the merit adjustments would be not technically recurring because we have to vote on them every year, but they kind of get built in. Jurgen Homestead's one time. Additional operating impacts for Jurgen, are those recurring?
Those are
operating
recurring.
impacts? And let's see. I've got a multi-year approved positions on my list of 3 FTEs at 383,000 in what we had produced before. Where did those positions
So
go?
we've actually moved those to demonstrated needs. So looking, reevaluating what we identified as an expectation and a demonstrated need. We always assume that some multi-year positions, we do those if the revenues are available. Given our current picture, we wanted to drop those to the demonstrated needs for evaluation under that category.
Okay. And the fire equipment is the same. And that, so the fire equipment and upgrades, that's a one-time,
Yes.
and the Peacock Dam is one time, and the splash pad operating, that's recurring as
Yes.
well. Okay, thank you.
And our next step, budget requests were submitted on January 19th. Staff began reviewing what was submitted, and then we held the department budget meetings on March 17th through the 19th. Based upon those meetings, we've categorized our demonstrated needs with 18 positions and a total of $2.4 million. And our service enhancements are 6 positions at a total of $2.1 million. So we're still working through some of these to determine if revenues are available, what could and would be funded under these categories. Yes.
Question. On that slide on our agenda package, the 18 FTEs are 2.1 million, so now it's 2.4, and the service enhancement has gone from 4 to 6.
Yeah, so because of the budget meetings, information came out during those meetings, so we've made some adjustments to what has been requested.
All right, thank you.
So we had 22 an hour. So we started with 22 new positions under budget and management service, and then service enhancements. Now we're at 24.
24.
So the 3 that moved from the multi-year, are those 3 of those new 4?
So 3 of those are in the 18. I'd have to go back and verify how we kind of recalibrated everything. But everything that was presented was preliminary. Now that we've had budget meetings, these are kind of in the next step of being reviewed. So this is where we're at today.
So where we're at with the demonstrated need positions, you can produce for us that list of positions by department and the positions and salaries and the service enhancements as well. Okay.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
We can do
Thank
that.
you. Any other questions from council members?
And if I could just add, Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger, part of the work tonight is to get some feedback and direction from council. So happy to always provide information to council, but there's still a lot of work that we're doing as a staff level to put together a recommended budget. There's still some outstanding important information that we need in order to provide a recommendation to council. So I just want to make sure that as we're sharing information, as we're refining details, as we're providing information, that we understand that it's still very much a work in progress. And so I want to make sure that that's in alignment with council's expectations.
Yeah, I think for me, what's helpful is to break these into recurring and one-time expenses so they don't look like just blanket budget increases. So that we can also try to delineate where we want to pull the revenue from to meet those needs and aren't just stacking the budget to be bigger next year. So I think that would be helpful. I think my rough numbers are we're at one time of about 3 million and recurring touching around 8 million.
Yep. So all of the service enhancements and demonstrated needs, those are all recurring dollars.
Yeah, but then we've got all the Peacock Dam and all
Yeah,
those.
so between
breaking,
those, yeah.
breaking all those out is going to be helpful because otherwise, we just need to see, do we need to pay stuff with one-time money or do we need to build out the budget and revenue model so that we can meet those recurring needs? I think I had another question on our debt service. So when we shifted from the revenue savings plan, we went to the 8.5%, 8.5 cents. And I guess on feedback from the town manager and from you and maybe Mr. Beck on, it doesn't seem like that flat 8.5 is growing in proportion with the budget to meet some of our capital needs. So are we looking at maybe doing more than 8.5 cents or doing a percentage of the budget, because that it increases when we get a reval, but it's not really growing in tandem with the operating costs.
I think that's, go ahead.
So the 8.5 cents grows with the value of the penny. So every
Right.
time the value goes up, the current plan is set up to the model currently. that Davenport put together was modeling existing debt service on capital projects. It did not include, it does not include anything related to fire apparatus, and it does not include necessarily anything new. So any new capital is not modeled in that 8.5 cents. So I think we would have to pull Davenport in to do some modeling for us on that.
Yeah, because I think, our budget's getting bigger, our operating side of our budget's getting bigger, but our capital needs are increasing in tandem, but the resources to pay for those capital improvements and the debt service doesn't seem to be keeping up with what our capital needs are. So I'm kind of putting out there, do we need to look at doing a larger percentage of our budget going to debt service to build out our debt capacity for other programs and fire trucks and other things that may need, because I know with the revenue savings plan, it was optional to use that money for one-time capital improvements. We never utilized it that way. We used it just for debt service, but to have that capital fund there and available for really one-off, because I'd be interested in doing the modeling for the pumper truck or whatever, but at the end of the day, you end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars more for it by financing it than just buying it. And I don't know anything about financing fire trucks, but there are certain things that may be better one-off expenditures. And so we need to also have that resource other than fund balance that's dedicated to those types of purchases. So I think that maybe a thing for discussion at our budget meeting is how are we going to increase, with a limited budget, increase our debt service capacity for all of our capital projects over the next decade.
And we'll, council will be hearing more information about the CIP at your April work session, and then we'll be talking about it again at your May budget work session as well. So we've made a note of that in terms of looking at some modeling to see what that looks like, because as Ms. Warren says, the 8.5 cent really is modeled towards current program projects, but how do we, with the growth we're seeing and the needs, how do we keep that capital funding up with what we need to do in order to maintain vehicles, properties, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Mr. Singleton.
A question.
Yeah.
On our agenda here, the 18 FTEs are 2.4, where in here they were 2.1. Just curious, why did $300,000? Why did it increase $300,000?
I'm sorry,
On the FTEs here, 18 are 2.4 million, but in our agenda package they're 2.1. I'm just curious how it increased $300,000.
is that are you looking at the slide from the February retreat?
I'm assuming that's what it is.
From the February retreat, so the numbers shifted a little bit because we've done some additional work. So that's why this presentation you just got this morning, it was not included in the agenda packet. I think the one in the agenda packet was from February. So there is some shift as we continue to work through all of the requests, have budget discussions with the departments.
Okay, so we've added 2 FTEs, but the total number has increased from 3.9 to 4.5 million. So it's increased $600,000. That's a lot for adding 2 more employees. So anyway, we'll discuss it further later.
From the department meetings, we do want to give kind of an update on what we heard and what we're seeing from the requests. There is a lot of desire to improve operational efficiencies. This looks a variety of different ways, including streamlining our workflows, reducing some administrative tasks, and using better tools to do the work that we do. We've also seen some requests that continue to utilize data for decision-making and increasing effectiveness. A desire to align our staffing and resources that help us keep up with the service demands that we're seeing, as well as address any gaps that we see. And as always, we're trying to build our capacity through additional resources, looking at just from an internal perspective, how do we meet the needs of the organization so the organization can continue to meet the needs of the community. And then another item that you saw at the retreat was the stormwater utility, and so we do have some expansions there related to that project. FY26 included 2 priorities that really anchored our budget development, and that included opening of Jurgen Park and our fire merger. But we find ourselves in a really interesting situation for FY27. We've seen some significant changes in our national economy that really is driving some consumer decisions. As we mentioned earlier, we could really see some impacts to sales tax. And we know that the cost of gas really is a big indicator of how consumers feel about the market. And then, as you heard earlier as well, the uncertainty with property tax exemptions and reforms. Because property tax is such a large portion of our revenue base, any changes there could significantly impact our upcoming budget. And we are hearing from our neighbors that they're looking at cutting budgets, and so they're having to reduce service levels. And so we are looking at how do we maintain our existing service levels.
Which neighbors are you speaking of?
Is doing some significant budget cuts. Jody, are you aware of a couple others?
I believe some of our other communities, Apex might be another one. So there's several that are looking at having to cut their base budget.
Yeah.
I have a question, maybe it can be produced outside of this meeting. We approved a lot of positions in last year's budget, and Mr. Singleton has done some work on this, but can we get a breakdown of what the hiring and filling of those positions are and what sort of this if there's lap salary, how do we apply that in a constructive way? That'd be a good conversation for our budget meeting to look at those numbers. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions at this point? All right.
Okay. So with the quagmire we find ourselves in, we're looking at five items that we want to consider as we continue the budget development. One is limiting property tax as a solution for balancing the budget. We've talked about using one-time funding sources where appropriate, and so we've already started to identify those, as well as continuing to maintain our service levels in FY26 and thus the budget levels. We also need to make sure that we address our required expenses, such as the additional pay period, our insurance increases, retirement increases as well. We've also got a number of ongoing commitments that we need to make sure that we fulfill, including the projects at the Jurgen property, the park, and then the homestead, the operating impacts for White Deer, as well as the remediation at the Peacock property dam. And as always, we leverage our partner resources, so our fire cost share equipment that we would be getting some funding from the county to cover that. But then we also want to maintain our compensation strategy, and that looks at our pay in class, which we have just described as a market-focused project, as well as continuing to fund our merits for employees.
I have a question for number one. Can you explain to me a little bit limiting property tax increase as a solution?
So essentially, we are looking to not propose a tax increase as part of the FY27 budget.
I guess I'm asking more of the as a solution part. I know costs are increasing and we have outstanding projects. Have we looked at what we would need to cover and what it would take to cover some of those items as prices are increasing?
So that's part of what we're working on now. So the whole, as we move through this process, part of the work is looking at where we have levers to continue to cover our services and our costs and what those options look like. So we're still identifying what those could be.
I think another thing that would be helpful in evaluating this year's budget is looking to next year's budget in fairly decent detail to see what are we going to incur this year as an expense and what are we going to wait until next year. I know we sort of do that as part of our 5-year, but I'm always sort of, I don't know if this year's budget's good if I don't have an idea what next year's budget is. Because I think that goes, all the way through the 5-year where you're doing all these capital improvements and we kick some of those cans down the road, but we've got interest in transportation expansion in the town and these things cost money. And so we have to have sort of an idea of what are these looming things that we don't want to kick down to next year? What do we want to absorb this year? So I think looking at this year budget, we got to pass, but we also need to have really good eyesight on what next year's budget is. I think, and part of that is we also need to look more granularly line item by line item on some of these expenses to say, well, what if gas goes up a bunch this year? What if property taxes, we're bringing a lot of homes online that continue to get built, but if they're coming in and getting appraised at a lower level than our expectation level, we got $270,000 townhomes that aren't helping us, and we're not bringing on $600,000 homes that are actually going to add net revenue to our bottom line. That's the kind of variability we want to do in scenarios we want to be able to play out. So I think we are entering sort of a flattening revenue period, regardless of how much we grow, and that is unfortunate. But sort of looking at those 2 years that is helpful, because I think we can suck it up this year and do what we need to do, or if we want to wait to do something next year. But we want to be very explicit about those decisions.
Sure.
And know what they are, so we're coming into the next year with a really good handle on what challenges we face and how we're going to address them.
We can absolutely do that.
Anyone else have any comments on right now? All right.
All right. So with all that being said, we're starting our working budget at 90.6 million. So there's a slight deficit there. If we were to fund our obligations, the things that we have to do at approximately 3.6, we're looking at a need of $3.6 million. If we wanted to add to that any of the expectations, the things that we would commit to, now some of this some things in both these categories are one-time costs. That would be $6.5 million. Getting into the demonstrated needs, that's 18 FTEs and an additional 2.4. So that deficit there is 8.9. And finally, any service enhancements totaling $2 million. We're looking at a need of $11 million. Questions? Okay.
I have just a question. So the obligations we went through those as additional expenses, right? Is that what those were?
Those were, the obligations are the additional pay period, the health insurance, those items, the pay in class.
Of the obligations and the expectations, what bucket is that coming from?
The expectations, that would be the merit, the Jurgen, homestead, the operating impacts. That was the second table. The expectations, right here.
Okay. Okay, you can go back. And then the demonstrated need. Okay.
Okay. So we'll end with, we do have the budget portal open. We did open it a little bit earlier this year to allow more time for public input. It did go out to our subscribers, and almost 300 of them have opened it. And the page itself has received about 147 page views. You did get an updated list. We did have one comment come in yesterday. We will continue to redistribute it through the newsletter and social media posts, continue to encourage the public to submit their comments and input. And we will keep that open until the end of May as we round out the budget process.
I have a question. I see the budget portal comments have grew from 1 to 4. My question is, what is the process when a member of the public submits a question for feedback through the budget portal? Do they receive a response? I just want to know what that process is like for my edification and for the public's edification.
So historically, if there has been a question, we do provide an opportunity to give them feedback. We usually do that as needed, or sometimes they reach out directly to you, but we do try and answer questions as they become available. Yeah.
Can we get this updated information sent to us, the updated presentation?
Yes, we will provide that to you electronically. And just a reminder of where we are today, we're doing our budget check-in. We will have a CIP work session in April. We are also in the midst of working on developing the budget book, which will be delivered to you at the end of the month in preparation of the manager's recommended budget presentation on May 5th. The work session on the budget is scheduled for May 15th, and we will hold a second public hearing May 19th, with June is our target adoption. And with that, if there's any other discussion.
Any council members have any comments, questions? Thank you, Ms. Warren, so much for all the hard work. We really appreciate it. Next on the agenda is our code revision project update. I will turn it over to our town attorney, Terry Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. The code revision project's been an ongoing project of the Legal Services Department to go through various ordinances in your town code of ordinances. So I'm pleased to have presenting today our legal intern, Amani Henderson, who has worked very diligently with the police department in looking at proposed amendments to the animal control ordinance, which is chapter 3 of the town code of ordinances. Some of these amendments are being prompted by a proposed interlocal agreement with Wake County, which has to do with the operation of the animal center being the place where stray animals and other animals that have to be impounded are being housed or sheltered.
For the benefit of the public, could you overview just very briefly our legal intern program?
Absolutely. So I'm been pleased with council support of having a legal intern program since I believe I started this in 2022. It started with a paid summer intern. It has expanded to a part-time intern in the fall and spring semesters. That is also our paid positions. We've been fortunate to have interns from Campbell, which is where Ms. Henderson is a third-year student, will be graduating and taking the bar this summer. We've also had interns from Central and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
At least one has been from Garner, is that true?
A couple have either lived in Garner or at some point have currently lived in Garner or while they were attending law school.
Thank you.
So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Henderson.
Good evening, Council. Again, my name is Imani Henderson, and I'm a spring legal intern. I'm joined by Captain Castellan. Together, we're here to present Chapter 3, Animal Amendments. Animal control is an important government function. Wake County operates the Wake County Animal Center for the purpose of reducing general animal control problems in the county. Garner has an animal control program with a similar purpose in mind, and Wake County and the town of Garner entered into an interlocal agreement which allows the town of Garner to utilize the Wake County Animal Center to help Garner address animal control problems within the town limits. Town staff asked that the legal department, working with the police department, to recommend revisions to address the animal control program to strengthen the town's relationship with Wake County. And so the goal of the amendments is to align the town of Garner's animal ordinance with Wake County's animal ordinance. And as long as it's aligned, this will ensure that the interlocal agreement can be carried out smoothly. And so this is a reference to where you'll find all the sections where you'll find all the amendments. And it's in order, but I did reserve a section 317 and section 343 for the end, where we'll go deeper into what a dangerous animal hearing should look like.
Good evening, council, management, citizens of Garner. Like Amani said, my name is Dave Castle. I'm a captain with the police department. So from a public safety viewpoint, just some key considerations as we go through this presentation. What you'll see across all of this is it's about being fair, consistent, and making professional decisions during problem solving. So these updates will help clarify, make some clarifications in our ordinance so that they align with state law and also with the best practices within our region, within Wake County. So that will ensure that our enforcement is clear, consistent, and is legally sound when we make those decisions. Public safety is a focus here. So clear definitions and guidelines, as you'll see, will allow our officers to make those professional decisions when they are interacting with our citizens related to animal-related concerns, helping us protect both our residents and also the animals. To further that with professional and consistent enforcement, these changes allow for a stronger guidance, which reduces subjectivity and ensures that in similar situations, we're handling it the same way. So that allows for that fair and professionalism. And just to close out before we continue on here, overall, these changes will help us balance public safety with fairness while meeting the expectations of our growing community. And it also allows us a good point to provide education to our public related to these changes so they can be good and responsible pet owners. So I'll turn it back over to Amani.
And so as a means of an overview, these are the North Carolina General Statutes that govern how the town should run their animal control program. And so I'll be referencing these throughout the presentation. More specifically, we'll look at Chapter 67 later on in the presentation as well. I also had the opportunity to read other local government or animal ordinances. And in reading those ordinances, I got to look at what language was used in those ordinances that will be beneficial to add to our ordinance, and more specifically, how can we use different language to align our ordinance with the Wake County ordinance. Moving right into the amendments that are found in Article 1. Abandon, abuse, and impoundment came directly from the Wake County ordinance. For bite, a 5-day threshold was added so that could be merged with the Wake County ordinance. And so next, the definition of owner was made broader than the legal definition of owner. Specifically, for example, if the legal owner is away and they have someone taking care of their dog, they would be responsible for the care, action, and behavior of the animal.
So there's some changes in some language in our ordinances, and that was at large. What does that mean? And then restraint. So previous ordinance, it wasn't as clear, so we wanted to make sure it was clear and understandable, not just for our officers that are going out there, but also for the public in the community to understand. So at large here means that when an animal is off the property of its owner and not under the restraint of a competent person. And then restraint means an animal under restraint within the meaning of this chapter will be controlled by a chain, a leash, or another device, secured in a vehicle, within a secured enclosure, or within the dwelling house. So an actual leash law, previous ordinance before this just allowed for subjectivity for that, as far as like voice command, meaning you could be in control. Just felt our residents would feel a little bit safer and understand what the actual leash law is. So just defined it a little bit more clear. And it seems like common sense, but putting it into the ordinance allows for everybody to understand.
The current ordinance already prohibits owners from allowing their chickens to run at large. And so this amendment will move the prohibition up into a more appropriate section, which would be section 3.6. So this is a pretty straightforward amendment. Moving on to section 315, and more specifically to subsection B9. In the current ordinance, it's currently prohibits maintaining any roosters that loudly and habitually crows. However, per section 3.6 backyard hens, it's actually we're not allowed to have roosters within the town limits. So as a means of organization and clarity, we wanted to remove that subsection and further clarify that roosters are not permitted within the town limits. Further, in that section, the nuisance animal notice, the amendments would pretty much each report could result in a civil penalty. And in addition, if a warning is issued instead of an actual report being issued, then that warning would count toward the number accruing within the 90-day period.
Now we get to our civil penalties. The changes made here will make it more structured and aligned for fair, like I said before, and consistency among violation. That doesn't take away that we're first going to try to educate and ask for compliance with any type of violation, but it gives the residents an opportunity to correct the issue while still holding repeat and serious violators accountable. So it allows for a more structured and consistent enforcement.
Rolling right into our amendments that were changed in Article 2. The proposed amendment would be adding subsection C, which again is directly from the Wake County Ordinance, which requires owners to provide proof of vaccination if requested by an animal control officer. In addition, the other amendments would establish an assumption that if a bite did occur, it would establish an assumption that if a bite did occur, then if evidence establishes that it did. So there's like an assumption that if there's evidence that a bite occurred, then it did in fact occur. Next, if animal control confirms rabies symptoms as rabies, then the animal control must euthanize the animal. And lastly, people must report when an animal bites a person, and also report the whereabouts of the animal. And then moving into the amendments in section 3.
All right, so always a sensitive topic. A lot of people are animal lovers, myself included. So, but we know sometimes the animals can become violent and vicious and unpredictable. So in those times, our officers that respond need to act in these rare situations quickly to protect our people in our community, our children, and animals themselves. So this just allows some verbiage and guidance in those situations, allowing, our officers to put down an animal when it's dangerous and it may harm somebody in our community. So it sets these clear and responsible standard, but let it be known that this is a last resort if we aren't able to trap that animal or secure it in any other fashion. So then I'll just move forward into animal trapping. Okay, and this is just some additional verbiage that says that the only people that should be setting out these traps to handle nuisance and stray animals are the people that are trained professionals, our animal control officer, and that prohibits people anybody else other than a professional from disturbing those tracks, moving them. That avoids interruption in the process that we're going through, and it ensures that animals are handled properly and humanely. So just some verbiage to to add to the things we're already doing that was kind of there, just more redefined and structured.
And so turning our focus to dangerous animal hearings and procedures, the UNC School of Government created a guide for local government officials on how to develop and administer a process for determining when a dog fits North Carolina's legal definition of a potentially dangerous dog. And so this is a side-by-side of what is required by North Carolina versus what the Garner's ordinance specifically states. And so you'll notice a few differences between the two, and this is specifically because under the general statute, the town of Garner is permitted to adopt their own animal ordinance. And so the town has merged the definition of dangerous dog with potentially dangerous dog in order for more organization and clarity of what that looks like. And so this is important because according to North Carolina General Statute 67, Section 4.5, it's 4.1, excuse me. So owners are going to be impacted by a determination of a dangerous animal. And because their rights may be limited, it is important that the hearing be structured in a way to process the animal owner's due process. And so the amendment found in Section 317, Confinement and Control of Dangerous Animals, add this notice requirement as required by the general statute to determine that an animal is dangerous. And even further, just as I mentioned that dangerous animal proceedings may result in limitation of an owner's rights, these amendments speak specifically to once an animal is deemed dangerous, the notice requirement that is now pressed upon the owner of the dangerous animal. And so these amendments establish a notice requirement when an owner moves from Garner to another jurisdiction, when an owner transfers ownership of a dangerous animal to another owner within the town limits, as well as when an owner transfers ownership of a dangerous animal to another jurisdiction. And so again, you'll see that due process requirements are really important, and you'll see that the town of Garner actually goes further to ensure that an owner's rights are fully taken serious. And so you'll see the state requires 3 days for an appeal, whereas Garner will give 5 days, and then a hearing is required by state within 10 days, but the hearing here in the town of Garner will be within 5 days as well. And so while some of those limitations may give people pause, we do want to establish that Garner is in fact looking out for an animal owner's rights. And so putting everything together, the responding animal control officer will investigate an incident, and if necessary, they will, based on an amendment, provide written notice to an animal owner with a form outlining why the animal was determined dangerous. In addition, the owner will be provided with a separate form which will inform them of their rights to appeal the determination. The appeal will go before a board, and the board will make a decision, and then even if they don't like that decision, they have further recourse. And so to ensure a fair and impartial process, the hearing will be held by the assistant town manager and 2 other employees of departments other than the police department. And so the owner will have the right to present evidence and as to why maybe the determination was made in error or whatever may be the case, but the board still has the authority to determine if the evidence is relevant. And so some of these things, the board may not be completely familiar with the legalese, which is why the UNC government's guide is such an important resource to help the board administer the process efficiently. And so again, the guide also has these forms that I'm referencing to, which is what the board is encouraged to use those standardized forms to ensure everything is proceeded successfully. And so with that,
Quick question: how often would this board meet?
just if there is an appeal. So again, once an animal control officer comes to a scene and if they determine that an animal is dangerous, they'll be provided with the forms. And if they appeal that determination, then the board will be made to address that appeal. If you wanted to speak more on that, Attorney, did you want to?
Thank you for that question. So state law requires us to have an appeals board, and it has to be separate from the individual or agency that issues the dangerous dog declaration or determination. While I've been here in the last 5 years, we've only had one appeal, and then it was withdrawn before we had the board hearing, but it did result in a court case. In this situation, what I envision happening if council adopts these amendments is we would go ahead and determine employees who are interested in serving on this and then training them for it. Because of the short turnaround, it's difficult to get a more citizen-oriented type appeals board to be able to meet and render a decision on this. And what's not amended, we went through this a couple of years ago. We did some substantial revisions to address dangerous animals, including dogs as well as exotic animals that might be in the town. So once that dangerous dog or animal declaration is upheld, certain provisions go into effect, like having to maintain that animal in a more secure enclosure, having to keep them on a muzzle, if they're out in public, and those kinds of things. And in the really serious situations where there's been a fatality or a very serious injury, there may be a call to euthanize that dog. And because we don't want a long, drawn-out appeals process, because there are significant costs in sheltering the dogs and keeping them secure from other animals that they might inflict further damage on. So that would be like the second phase of this if these amendments are adopted by council, is to develop that board so that it's ready to be appointed by the manager and meet as needed.
Thank you.
Yes. So the next step would just be if you guys want to consider this at a subsequent public hearing or adopt the amendments on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks so much for your presentation and all the hard work that went into this. This is fairly emotional work. We sat up here through a situation that was really terrible and awful. And it's good also to see that we're not just trying to protect Garner residents, but also other communities.
Yes.
Our situation, we had a family remove their animal from our jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. And so it's good to see this type of collaboration and cooperation to try to make sure these animals are known. And also appreciate the support for the owner's rights, but also the swiftness that we can do something. That was very... thank our town attorney for guiding us through that emotional experience. Questions from council, Mr.
Well, first, I'd like to echo again what Mayor Pro Tem has said. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. A lot of work that's happened in a short period of time. It is an important step to making sure that we're protecting the public safety, as it was reiterated here. And one question for you. How will we ensure that the public knows about these changes that are being proposed?
Yeah, so what I tried to mention earlier, we have what's called what I call a communication plan. How are we going to let the community know, right, that these changes have occurred, to make them better educated. And you'll see not only posts on social media, but you'll see our staff at community events handing out information, and then having informational sessions, whether it's at homeowners associations or apartment complexes, and just a variety of things like that to make sure that that people know and understand. And it also opened up for maybe some good partnership with some private companies to maybe, you know, provide the right types of leashes for the particular dog that an owner may have, so they can be more responsible when they're handling that animal. So, yes, definitely a communication plan in place, and we'll push that forward.
Thank you.
If I may follow up, part of the code revision project, there is a web page. It does have an alert feature that residents can sign up for and a comment form. And I've provided you with the comments that we've received to date on these proposed amendments. If council should decide to have a public hearing, we will also push out that notification to anyone who signed up for alerts, as well as through the town's social media, and allow them to use that form. That's designed to alert people of proposed amendments and then to provide the adopted amendments until such time as they're codified into our code of ordinances.
Thank you.
Mr. Stallings?
Okay, so I have two questions. So I see in section 3.1, number 8, it says the definition of abuse, and this is new language. The definition of abuse, according to the amendment, if adopted, would consist of placing or confining an animal or allowing an animal to be placed or confined in a motor vehicle under the conditions for the period of time to cause physical pain, suffering, or death to the animal due to temperature, lack of food or drink, or other conditions. So my question is, would this penalize, for say, an individual who runs in the food line? I've seen this personally, but they'll call the police because they don't realize that the individual has actually cracked the window while they ran in the store, and they may have their dog or animal in the back of the car. Would this person be penalized if the individual calls the police on them because they think that the dog is not duly accommodated?
Right. So that involves what I talked about as far as professional decision making, right? Arriving and noticing what had occurred, you know, that the window was cracked, speaking with the owner, you know, and a lot of times it's that educational aspect and having that conversation and not immediately going to strict enforcement. So we'll look at the totality of what's going on, if the animal was really at danger, or has this occurred before? Have we had past issues with this particular person? In making that professional decision based upon fairness and everything that's going on, and not just going strictly to enforcement.
Yeah, thank you for that. And my second question, how many of those calls do we receive around what people would consider undue accommodation for folks where they may have ran in the store? And
so I don't have the exact figures here. I know that in 2025 we responded to just under 800 calls for service that were classified as animal control calls. So they could have been classified as something else. The exact number related to the type of incident that you're talking about, I couldn't provide you a good fair number right now, but I do say that there's probably, from just listening to the police radio and reviewing calls for service, there is a significant number of calls related to animals inside a vehicle.
Is there anything that would penalize somebody for leaving their animal in the car with the window down while they run into a store?
Yeah, if the conditions exist where it's put that animal, you know, at danger, that we do have statutes to cover that.
So it's pretty much at the discretion of the officer responding to the situation.
It is. It's a professional decision making based upon what's occurred. This our ordinance provides a guideline for our officers to look at, right, and to put that in their decision as far as how they want to enforce or not enforce. But like I said, we go it based upon professionalism and not emotion, right? So that's the big key that we push in the training of our officers. And then with these updates, there's also going to be some training needs for our officers so that they're aware of what these changes are. They're aware of any new general statute that is on there, so they're able to make the right decision and let's per se not charge a person for something that's really not a charge. Make sure it's an actual current charge and they're following the elements of that crime and making that professional decision.
Thank you.
Quick comment on that because it goes to the capacity. And where are we with regards to our animal control officer capacity? I know for a long time we only had one. Do we still only have one animal control?
Yeah, so we only have one officer, but the board has graciously approved for these public safety aid positions, civilian positions, and some of that function is going to be responding to animal control calls and being another subject matter expert in responding to those.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Singleton.
Just want to thank you for the time and effort in updating our statutes here in Garner, our ordinances, I'm sorry, and particularly the diligence continued on dangerous animals. Everybody's aware of the horrible situation that happened here a few years ago, so that was important for everyone involved to make sure that information is out there and we can take it to the legal limit of the law to enforce if hopefully that never happens again. But we've got it in writing in our ordinances, so thank y'all for that time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Matthews.
Great presentation, and thank you very much. And unfortunately, it seems like when it gets 100-degree temperature, you go to a Walmart or a grocery store or anywhere, somebody's got to take the dog and the windows are rolled up and the car's not running. It's 100 degrees and they don't think anything of it. And I'm so glad we're trying to be on top of that and make good decisions at the time, because animals are very important.
Thank you all so much for your presentation. I think
Thank
we're...
you.
You have one more question? Mr.
Yeah.
Stallings has
I
one
have
more question.
Just one more question. So in section 315 prohibited actions, and this is just a clarification question, why do we change the language from shall to may?
That's fine. Could you just repeat that? Sorry.
So in prohibited actions, section 315, it said the animal control officer, it used to say shall confiscate any animal found at large and compound animal in animal shelter in accordance with the provision of Article 3. Why do we change the language from shall to may? Is it to give us more discretion?
Yeah, so it allows for that professional discretion. So, those different situations, this one time that an animal runs off a property and it's captured, by a neighbor, that we're not immediately impounding that animal, we're finding the righteous owner, and giving it back, because we understand life happens, things happen, but at the same time, we want to protect anything that may be dangerous. So just giving a little bit of that professionalism, latitude there for that total circumstance, so we're not just strictly doing straight to enforcement.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all so much. I think the town attorney is asking council if it has a preference for setting a public hearing for this item so that the public can have some input prior to adoption. Is that correct?
Yes. So generally, my recommendation is to allow for a public hearing to make sure that the public is informed of proposed changes to any ordinances. And so if that's council's inclination and concurrence, then we would set it at a subsequent meeting, because these aren't urgent at this time, although some of these are prompted by overcrowding at the shelter, which part of that answer to that question of shall to may is to prevent those situations where, if you read in the full thing, it says to be impounded and at the shelter. This gives us a little more discretion on when to use those facilities. But because none of these are time sensitive, we'll look to put this on a council agenda, that's not already heavy with a lot of other public hearings.
Council amenable to having the attorney bring this back for a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you. Unfortunately, Ms. Henderson's time with us will be limited. She'll be graduating soon. But we'll let her know whether these do get adopted in the future, and she can use that on her resume.
I'm sure she'd want to come back.
Where are you going to go? Where are you going? Where are you going? Looking at the time, I think this would be a good opportunity for us to take a 15-minute break and recess and then reconvene right about 8 o'clock is usually. Is that good for council? Sure.
Yep.
All right. We'll come back at, what is that, 10 after? 10 after. All right, thank you. We've reconvened here at 8:10 with our work session this evening. Tonight, we're going to do something a little different and new for us, and we're going to do some development previews, and I will turn this over to our town manager to help explain what we're doing.
Yes, so thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger. So tonight, we've added what we're calling our development previews to your work session agenda. This comes out of council's discussion and requests to be able to provide information to developers who want to bring projects to the community, be able to preview them and see them and provide feedback earlier in the process. And so tonight we are starting a trial run at this process. And moving forward, we're looking to include these types of presentations and requests at your work sessions monthly. There'll also be times to schedule individual meetings as well, if additional information or questions are still, if council members still have questions as well. And so tonight, wanted to sort of open with an explanation of what we're doing and turn it over to our planning director, Mr. Triesenberg, to introduce the first project for this evening. So, Mr. Triesenberg?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger and council members. Yes, tonight we have two applicants who would like to give you a preview of their projects. The first one is a project at 7615 1010 Road. That is kind of basically the northeast corner, close enough, of Lake Wheeler and 1010 Road, so behind the Costco.
Strawberryville.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. And we first met with these folks back in actually June of 2024. That was when we kind of had our first official discussions with them about a pre-application meeting. They kind of, I think, went back and digested and retooled a little bit. And so we most recently met with them in October of this last year. And so now they are coming forth with a Tier 1 zoning request, and they're here to present that to you tonight. And Mr. Worth Mills is here. I'll pull up the presentation, and the clicker should be on the podium.
You could introduce yourself with your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. Worth Mills with Longleaf Law Partners, 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 302, Raleigh, NC 27612. Here on behalf of Liberty Healthcare, who is the contract purchaser and the rezoning applicant for 7615 1010 Road. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you and receive feedback prior to our public hearing, which is to be scheduled. So the property itself is approximately 28.3 acres. We're proposing to rezone the property from rural agricultural to commercial mixed-use conditional. The rezoning would facilitate a new mixed-use community, up to 450 new homes. Most of those would be sort of an apartment, multifamily style housing, age-restricted housing, with the opportunity for townhomes as well. Those townhomes could be individually platted or built on the same lot. I think we're still trying to determine what the ownership style or subdivision style of that would be. It would also permit up to 38,000 square feet of non-residential uses, so medical office, retail, office, etc. And we think that the policies within the Garner Forward Land Use Plan support this type of mixed-use development here. So Liberty Senior Living is a component of Liberty Healthcare. They have built age-restricted communities throughout the Southeast. Three that I wanted to bring to your attention because they are nearby. Hayes Barton Place, which is in Raleigh. Inspire Briar Chapel Hill, which is in Pittsboro. And Templeton of Cary in Cary. And Liberty Healthcare and Liberty Senior Living would like to develop a similar type of community here in Garner. So just to highlight some of the changes in the area, I'm showing an aerial view of the property and the surrounding area in 2021. The property, 7615 1010 Road, outlined in red, At this point, this stretch of I-540 had not been completed. And then shifting gears to 2025, you can see the construction of the Costco, new homes and other commercial outparcels, and you can see the completion of this stretch of I-540, which is a driver for this new development in the area. As Mr. Matthews mentioned, this has operated as a farm, Porter Farms, for some time. There is a single-family home and some older structures on the property, produce stand, and then, as you turn your attention to the east, closer to the 401 1010 Road intersection, you see the Costco building. On the opposite side of 1010 Road are the Royal Creek Apartments, which are within Fuquay. And then here's a look at the property, sort of the easternmost portion of the site looking inward. And again, you can see the Costco lurking in the background. This map shows the current zone, the current Garner zoning in the area. We're on the western edge of Garner's planning jurisdiction. Most of the undeveloped parcels in this area are zoned rural agricultural. The majority of the developed properties are zoned CMX conditional. Some other zoning districts in this area are multifamily A and multifamily B conditional. And then here, just to get a sense again of sort of the split planning jurisdictions in this area, you see Wake County and Fuquay-Varina zoning. Wake County on the west side of Lake Wheeler Road, and then predominantly on the south side of 1010 Road is Fuquay zoning. But Fuquay, similar to Garner, does have that sort of general commercial zoning at the intersection of 401 and 1010 Road. So a little policy overview here, looking at the Garner Forward General Framework Map. Most of the property is within a community activity center. The Garner Forward Plan recommends a mix of land uses that serve multiple neighborhoods. In terms of residential development, it recommends apartments, condominiums, and townhomes are appropriate surrounding the center. With that Costco serving as the anchor tenant for the larger area, that's obviously sort of the center and the regional attraction in this area, but this plan would also propose a mix of medical office, retail, general office uses that could sort of support and radiate out from that center. Then looking at the Garner Forward Character Typology Map, again, the Character Typology Map designates this area as a mixed-use area, which is, again, land that offers the opportunity to serve the broader economic and housing needs in the community. We think that the proposed rezoning of age-restricted housing and a variety of non-residential development helps to meet both the housing and economic needs of the community. And then lastly, looking at the development and intensity change map, sort of a companion to the character typology map. This map designates the property as level 4A, areas to transform, low rise. These areas provide opportunities to reimagine Garner's future, introduce new energized activity centers. The level 4A recommends a mix of uses, either stacked or sort of in-block mix of uses with building heights between 3 and 5 stories. The rezoning here proposes both a mix of residential and non-residential uses with building heights not to exceed 5 stories. So we think we're meeting the map's intent there. Turning it over to the exhibit that we submitted along with our zoning conditions, this exhibit sort of breaks the project down into 4 distinct pods. Pods A and C, which are in the yellow, sort of in the center of the site. This is the primary residential pod where you'll have active adult multifamily and group care. Townhomes contemplated sort of in pod C on the north side of the stream buffer. And then pod B, which is at the intersection of Lake Wheeler and 1010 Road, is where you would find additional group care uses. You'd find medical office and retail. And then turning your attention east to pods D1 and D2, collectively just pod D. Those are your commercial and retail outparcels. This plan shows internal private streets connecting the pods. I'll also note that this exhibit shows a small triangular piece sort of on the edge of Pod D. That is address 01010 Road. It's not part of our rezoning application, but Liberty is under contract to purchase that as well. That property has already been rezoned CMX, part of a prior rezoning application. I believe the same one that the Costco went through. And then just a slide that shows the zoning conditions that we've submitted to date. We do plan to resubmit, hopefully by the end of this week. We've received staff feedback. Hopefully between the feedback from staff, feedback from council, we'll be able to substantially update these conditions and get this case ready for a public hearing. Some highlights though that I did want to note: we do have conditions limiting the building materials. We have minimum square footage for the apartment style multifamily. We have a very large clubhouse, 10,000 square feet. That would be integrated into the sort of principal multifamily structure. So it would not be a separate clubhouse, but one sort of built within the footprint of that multifamily building. And then a list of permitted uses within each pod on the right-hand side of the screen. I appreciate the time this evening. Happy to receive any and all feedback. And if any council member would like to meet with us following tonight, we're happy to make that work as well. So again, appreciate the time. Looking forward to being back here, hopefully sooner than later.
Thank you. I'll start down here, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Dillinger. This is a great location. As a matter of fact, I was driving through there on Saturday and had not reviewed this yet. And I said, I know they're coming out there, but these early meetings like this, I think, are going to be very beneficial because, as we say, so we can still do the 2-1s with them if we want to. Okay. But where we work out the details before we get under the lights, as we like to say,
That's right.
and get a preview of what you got going. And but I like your presentation, especially with senior retirement. This is if the facility looks like any of your renderings, it'll rival some of these places, and there is a big need for it, as well as putting the medical element in there, as well as the commercial activity. And plus, you're next door to Costco. That's not a bad deal either.
It's a nice sell.
It really is. So, great presentation. I like the direction you're going. Look forward to working with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Couple of questions. And you know me, I'm going to ask about the green space, the green area. You do have the existing pond, of course, and it's got a 50-foot non-disturb buffer, and the existing stream, that also would be a total buffer, 100 foot, correct? That's
The stream buffer?
Yes, sir. The one on the right, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're showing 100 feet.
Okay. And just to clarify, in the condition, it's stated that for the Fair Housing Act, that'll be applicable here, so it'll be 55-year and older project.
That's correct.
55 years and older persons will be allowed to live there.
That's right. I think currently we're 100% committed to that for sort of the apartment style multifamily. We may open the townhome portion up, which is maybe upwards of 40 townhomes maximum, as sort of not age restricted, just market rate housing. But we'll take any consideration or any advice into consideration as we move forward.
Okay, so the townhomes will be focused more, I think you said in C, the apartments would be more in the A, right?
Oh, that's correct. So that stream buffer is sort of the line between C and A.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hop in since I'm in the middle here. A couple of questions, and then I'll pass on. There's a zoning condition that says the tree canopy coverage and open space should apply holistically to the site and not be divided by each pod. There are 28 acres here. So what's the breakdown, especially when you've got a mix of commercial and residential, with residential having the higher threshold or requirement for tree preservation? Help me explain what that holistically means.
So I think when we're looking at that in terms of open space, 10% required for either sort of a residential subdivision or development with residential uses. So wanting to sort of have the full 28.3 acres within which to sort of divide that open space up rather than concentrating it in just maybe one pod over the other. So trying to just create sort of a framework where we are evaluating open space and tree canopy over the course of the 28.3 acres as opposed to individual pods. I don't have a breakdown sort of how that open space is divvied up or tree canopy is divvied up between pods. We can take a look at what our preliminary numbers are and bring that back either in individual meetings or at the public hearing.
So you've got, 28 acre site, and there's the 2 acres in the bottom southeast portion that is strictly commercial. So the tree preservation and open space numbers would be calculated off of that net 26 acres, regardless of how it's developed. Would it be, does that fall into residential, or I'm trying to understand?
We've been sort of working internally as we've gotten staff's feedback on our first round of conditions. Again, I think we're going to be looking at a condition that sort of that open space number is going to be based off of the 28.5 acre as opposed to just the 26 that would be residential uses, which would lead to a higher number of acres set aside as permanent open space.
So there's a permanent open space, but there's also the tree preservation, which are two separate things. So my question is about the tree preservation. Is that calculated off of the 26 that are potentially have residential components per the use table?
That I'll have to get back to the applicant and our civil to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, do that, because it's just not clear as a written condition what that means. And I think the default position should be, if there's going to be a residential component, we're trying to use that residential reference point for that preservation or that canopy preservation. The other question I'll get to right now is the apartments. What's the verticality on the apartment story-wise?
So I know that we are going to offer a minimum story condition, no less than 3, no greater than 5, with a condition committed to sort of condition corridors. So, everybody's sort of entering into one entrance and then going to, down the air-conditioned hall to reach their specific unit. Within the pods B and D, I don't believe that we have set any height limits to date in terms of those sort of commercial uses, but we'll look to add some of that as well.
So I think there's been an inclination on the council to require elevators.
Yes, and
so I just have that thrown into the mix as to your height decision, because if you do 3, we're going to probably want those. So.
I think just based on the market for who would be living here, we would absolutely make sure that each sort of multifamily building had elevators.
Okay. Got a couple more, but I'll pass on to Councilman Stallings.
I always ask why the tier 1 approach. That's my first question. And second question is, can you explain condition 10 a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think tier 1 for us provided a little bit more flexibility at this point. And so we've tried to thread the needle somewhat with the pod breakdown in terms of locating specific uses within different portions of the property. As it relates to condition 10, that is really a condition that just says we're going to market these to 55 and older individuals for the multifamily buildings.
Thank you.
Mr. Vance?
Okay, I think my question was along the same lines with reference to why tier 1 instead of tier 2. And that's...
Yes, I think it has to do more with the flexibility at this stage in terms of maybe not having as detailed of sort of zoning plans associated with the rezoning, so that we don't run into any issues at a site plan review stage where, when you're at the rezoning stage, you have not done sort of all of the necessary engineering work, grading work to feel as confident as maybe you would have with the tier 2. But but again, we're trying to be as descriptive as we can with these upcoming sets of zoning conditions, and then also provide some clarity as it relates to the different pods and where those uses would be located.
Gotcha. And the reason I brought that up is because I saw on the development website where it had the different areas laid out. Then I look at inside the packet, we have a rezoning master plan. So I was looking at that and saying, okay, we are laying out what we want to do already. So in my mind, I'm saying tier 2, you're already there, but I understand what you're trying to do here.
And I think we got feedback from staff that with a tier 1, we don't need sort of that cover sheet associated with the pod exhibit, but we will still include this within our next submittal, again, just to provide some assurances as to what's going where.
Yes, and to echo what Mr. Matthews said, I find these early meetings helpful to help shape my thinking, my thought process as we go through the planning process. We are a rapidly growing area, and I believe it's imperative in order to be a responsible council person that we know what's coming in and to be able to hopefully help shape that type of growth. So I appreciate that. The question I have is, at this early stage, have you started to look at the traffic impacts on 1010, knowing the corridor?
We have a completed traffic impact analysis. I believe that is in the hands of Garner. I can get a copy of that over to the council members if they would like to review that. I don't have a copy of it with me, so I couldn't really speak to those counts. I can refer back to it this week and again provide more information as to what those traffic counts are and what the existing and proposed levels of service at the studied intersections would be.
And the possible improvements to 1010
yes,
caused by this improvement. Okay, Absolutely. Next question is, and I think you already answered, this aligns with our current development plans for this area. Is that correct to say?
I think so, but obviously that's ultimately your decision to make.
Can I get the staff to help me out with this? Based upon what they presented here, does this align with our current land use plans for this area?
I mean, it's still a little early, but as of right now, I think the evidence that they've kind of shown you from the maps is something that staff would generally support, but that consistency review won't be completed until the public hearing. Okay. Or the planning commission meeting, actually.
So we're guiding it toward that?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, one last thing. As far as the infrastructure that's there, we know that there was a lot been done along 1010. Do we have enough infrastructure there to support this development?
To my knowledge, yes. I don't think I've seen any concern from the town as to any sort of utility capacity questions. We'll confirm that before we get back to the public hearing. But as far as I am aware, everything has been acceptable.
No further questions.
Swing back around this way. Mr. Matthews? Good to go. Mr. Singleton?
Far west end of the plan that you shown shows the large area of right-of-way. That's just undisturbed right-of-way for future improvement of Lake Wheeler Road, I'm assuming.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have another question and a little bit of concern around the breadth of uses in Pod B, being a lot of residential options that are there. And I say that with the context, within the context of our budget and the need to increase our revenues and the value of commercial property. And sort of a broader question is, why would we want so much more traditional residential development when Fuquay is right across the street, building all the residential? And why would we not position ourselves to have as much more commercial and benefit from that residential growth rather than incurring the expense of additional residents? I can see the transition from the D and the A core and the C, but I have concerns on a major road like Lake Wheeler and 1010 that based on the conditions that are here, the decision could be made to just do townhomes for the whole thing. Now, I know that probably wouldn't be what you would do, but we, again, being a tier 1, we want some type of assurances, whether it's another level of verticality and three, built overs or whatever. I think the last thing we want to see out there are just a bunch more townhomes.
Understood.
From a fiscal standpoint. My other question is more, I think, a staff question, because again, it goes to this revenue and service delivery question. And what is the service delivery makeup of that part of the town with Fuquay, Wake County, and the police departments and sheriffs, and also fire delivery? What is our burden in that part of the town? And I say that because, again, to add more residential here, we need more revenue out of our properties. So what's the breakdown of the service delivery of public safety in that part of town? And I know we're building a new fire station down there. Are we getting the lion's share of the calls in that area? And if no one can answer tonight, I understand the first time we've kind of done this. But I think it's a question, particularly for this part of town, is, again, why do we want to lean on more traditional residential development when it's booming down there and this is a commercial corridor? So like I said, I like pods A, C, and D. I get those. But that also seems like there's a potential for some strong commercial or even stronger mixed use component in that one pod. So I just throw that out there for staff to kind of look at that perspective. Are we more burdened with calls out there than Fuquay is, or what's that balance look like? I'm got a couple more questions, but I'll go to Mrs. Stallings. You have any questions?
My first question would be, is there an affordable housing element to this project?
It's all planned to be market rate, so there's no affordable housing commitments.
All right, thank you. Do you have any? My second question would be, do you know currently what the commercial and retail office uses would look like?
From an architectural perspective?
Just in general, what are you thinking in terms of retail and office space down there?
So I think you're going to be looking more at sort of out parcel retail in Pod D, just because of the sort of gravitational pull of Costco to our east. In Pod B, I think, is where you'll likely find more of that medical office or office type use. And obviously A and C being the thrust of the residential component here. I don't know that we've necessarily tried to identify or target specific tenants within pods, or really any pods at this point. But I would have to imagine, just given the square footage that we have, which is 38,000 square feet max of non-residential, that you're probably looking at a commercial use that is somewhat supportive of Costco. I don't think you're going to see necessarily a grocer there, again, just given the fact that Costco is next door, and because of the size of the square footage that we have sort of contained ourselves in. But no, we'll give some more thought to that in terms of maybe the types of tenants that we envision, and can bring that back at a public hearing. Or in an individual meeting, if you prefer.
Because I definitely echo Councilman Dillinger's, Mayor Pro Tem Dillinger's sentiments in regards to commercial. We would definitely in that area, and it's always booming. Would love to have a little bit more commercial in that area.
Okay.
Just a couple more quick questions, and I noticed that the breakdown of the units were studio, 1 bedroom, and 2 bedroom, no 3 bedroom.
We are updating our conditions for a 3 bedroom option as well.
Okay, excellent. That's good. Make sure I got my notes here. The only other, I would probably invest some thought into affordable housing. Talk with staff on what that might look like. It's part of it's deeply ingrained in our comprehensive plan as well. I'm sure you've reviewed it, so you're aware of it. We've invested a lot of time and resource into that work, and want partners who are willing to help us make contributions in some form or fashion to that need in the community. So just kind of be brainstorming with staff on some of those elements. Last call, anybody else have Mr. Matthews?
Were you here for the very first meeting we had tonight?
Got here maybe 6:05, 6:10. The first agenda item tonight?
Yeah.
I think I walked in sort of mid conversation.
I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Any wrap up on that one, Mr. Triesenberg?
Nothing more to add, but staff is listening, or will go back and review the proceedings here tonight, and we'll be addressing comments with the applicant going forward.
Thank you. And we have one more. This is Village at Big Branch, Mr. Triesenberg.
Yes, we do. So Village at Big Branch, this is the northwest corner of the intersection of Auburn Church Road and East Garner Road. Staff met in a pre-application meeting with this team back in August of last year. So again, there's been a little bit of time that's gone by for them to kind of absorb those initial comments from staff and to be thinking about some things that were at least relevant at that time in our progression of things. So again, I'll invite Marie Farmer to introduce her team and give you this presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Dillinger and members of council. My name is Marie Farmer with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, here on behalf of the applicant, Saxum Real Estate. So I'm joined by several members of the development team tonight who can be available to answer questions you may have. So this includes Dan Servadio with Saxum. We have Will Swearingen, civil engineer with Bolton & Mank. And then we also have Josh Renke, who is our traffic engineer with Bolton & Mank. Before we go into the site and the purpose of this rezoning, we would like to also thank staff and council for providing us with this opportunity to present the case while it is still under staff review. The goal for us is to receive your feedback tonight and digest it as a team so that when we do come back before you for our hearing, we're presenting a plan that not only reflects what your comprehensive plan calls for, but that also incorporates as much of your guidance as possible. So we really do appreciate it. With that said, to orient you with this site, it includes 3 parcels, again, along Auburn Church Road, just northeast of the 70 and 40 interchange and the White Oak Crossing Shopping Mall, and totals approximately 55 acres. We are in Wake County and the Gardner ETJ, so we would be annexing into the town as well. The property is located within the ETJ, and we are just on the edge of a regional employment activity center. And so what the comprehensive plan calls for here is for neighborhoods that are surrounding these employment centers to support a variety of home types and lot sizes, discouraging low-density suburban-style neighborhoods, and instead providing a variety of home types with different sizes and formats to avoid design monotony. This area of Garner is designated on the character typology map for neighborhoods, and so the comprehensive plan does recommend that these areas are primarily residential. Again, different home types on different lot sizes to provide a range of choices within the same neighborhood, transitioning from smaller lots to larger lots as you're moving out, and this is compatible with the R8 zoning. This site is also designated as an area to strengthen on the development intensity map. And so this represents places that already have positive momentum, but may need additional support to reach their full potential. And just for context, before diving into the proposed rezoning, the site is currently zoned residential agriculture, and we have that commercial highway overlay along East Gardner Road, along the frontage. So we do have a master plan with this project. And what we've tried to do here is really tie in all of those comprehensive plan recommendations from the general framework map and the character typology and development intensity map together into this project. So as you can see here, we are providing a variety of home types to support that nearby employment center, with the lots transitioning from larger to smaller with the townhouses in the center. We have the active open space dispersed throughout with the amenity along Auburn Church Road. So you can see here, the darker green is the townhouses. We have the duplexes in pink. We have the single families in yellow. And then that active open space as you move through the community from Auburn Church throughout, that active open space is in orange. And then you can see our passive open spaces in that lighter green. So in addition to committing to the basic project details like permitted uses and the maximum density, we have also included a number of conditions to address amenity and common area standards, including how the open space will be activated, as well as architectural conditions. And we have worked with town staff on this to ensure these do meet town standards to bring you a quality development. But these are still a work in progress. So we do look forward to any feedback that you may have. We will not go through all of these tonight because we do have limited time this evening, and we would like to focus on your guidance as it does relate to the overall project and the layout and the mix of housing types that we have here. But as we continue to move through staff review, again, we can further refine these conditions as it relates to the design details. And finally, just to illustrate the type of quality you can expect from Saxum, we did want to provide a few representative images to show examples of what we think is a pretty unique product type that Saxum hopes to bring here to Garner compared to what the town has today. So you can see these are some of the single family examples. We have the duplex examples here with the ranch style at the bottom. As you can see here, a lot of the duplexes are designed to look like larger single-family homes. And then with the townhouses, what Saxum is really trying to do with those is sort of go a step above in terms of design and quality for that next stage of Garner housing. So again, we thank you for the opportunity to present this case tonight, and we look forward to receiving your feedback.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Mr. Vance.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to first say I apologize to the previous applicant because I made a mistake where I looked at the Tier 1 and I was looking at the rezoning master plan for your plan together, the similar layouts. So I apologize for that mix-up, and if I caused any confusion, please forgive me for that. Moving on to the village at Big Branch, correct?
Yes.
My question is, it's a general question because we are in the early stages, that how does this proposal specifically advance our comprehensive plan goals for growth near economic employment centers? Not just in concept, but in real measurable ways. But based upon how things are growing out there now, how does it measure up?
I think that this site is actually pretty unique in terms of what the comprehensive plan calls for here, in that it is asking for a higher density residential to support that employment center. And so what we really tried to do here is provide that mix of housing that will support the nearby commercial. And so we think that the density and the housing types that we have proposed here do align with the comprehensive plan in terms of the general framework as well as that character typology.
Okay. And there is a lot of development going on out in that area, as you well know. And what are the projected traffic impacts on Auburn Knightdale Church Road, and what are the infrastructure improvements that would be necessary for that this particular project to be viable?
So the TIA is still in the works, and so we do not have the final conclusions on that. What we do know is that we will have frontage improvements, and we are committed to making those frontage improvements. And we are working with DOT to determine what, if any, offsite road improvements might be needed.
I'll hold my next question.
Yeah, I'll go, quick question. For the single-family homes, what is the anticipated price point for those homes?
So the entire community is, right now, the goal is for these to all be Class A rentals. And so they would be market rate. But we do understand that affordable housing is a priority for the town, and it is a priority for this project. And we were hoping to get feedback on the mix here from council in order to determine what affordability commitment we might be able to include.
Yeah, mine was not a housing affordability question. It was a revenue generation question.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out how large these are going to be, what the price points are going to be, to try to project out revenue generation for the project. I think in Garner, this heavy of a townhome type project on the lower end generates a lot less revenue and a lot more residents. And I will, there's sort of an employment center loophole in this part of the town because the employment center is a quarry. It's not your sort of typical employment center that you would think to drive, actual employment. So I think the R8 is not the right fit for this part of Garner. It's not really close to commercial. It's commercial, but it's not walkable commercial. We actually are working on amendments to that now. So I think the other challenge with the R8, so I think that's the first thing, is I think larger homes on lots is better for us. And to go into sort of specifics on the R8, in the conditions, I see conditions for 2-car garages and 1-car garages. The 1-car garages are 10 feet by 18 feet, which is not really large enough to fit most modern cars. So then you end up with one that being storage and the car being in the driveway. Well, the setback in the driveway is usually wide enough for 1 car, maybe 2 cars. So then those larger vehicles that don't fit in the garage end up on the street. When you're R8 zoning and you have duplexes and townhomes here, you end up with houses so close together, the driveways are so close together. If you go to your image of your townhouse representative image, fundamentally there's no street parking because the R8 zoning has really narrow lots already. So I'm fighting against R8 where it doesn't belong, because you end up with these parking issues. You end up with these houses. Like, we want to live next to our neighbors. We don't want to live on top of them. And the R8 is designed for a transitional zoning between residential and commercial. And this is really residential next to residential with a quarry next to it. That's not really, it's kind of a, not really the kind of commercial that is envisioned to be some more compact and suburban, more urban or urban transition. So I think that's kind of an issue for me, is just the townhomes. The duplex is an interesting product. I would like to get more information on kind of how those break out. I do have a question on the square footage though. So we talked about price. What's the square footage of or range for the single family, the duplexes, and the townhomes?
Let me see if I have 1,600 to 2,100 square feet, roughly.
For the single family, or just kind of general? Okay, that's helpful. I had a couple other questions. Mr. Singleton?
Yes, could you pull up the rezoning master plan map again?
Yes.
While you're doing that, these ponds on this property, I used to fish in when I was much younger. Young boy, had me and a friend would go out there and go fishing. A long time ago.
Yeah, leave that one up if you would.
It's hard to read some of the things on here, and I got a new lens yesterday. I had a cataract surgery, so I still can't read it in 2020. Can I ask a couple of questions here? The orange is the active open space.
Yes.
Up here to in the right hand, the upper right side, it's got the amenity, which is the pool and the clubhouse. You get all that. And some kind of court, it says.
There's a 10,000 square foot play lawn there as well.
Play lawn. Okay, good. That's what I was asking. If we had just a large area, grass, flat area. The other two, you have a smaller active space, and then on the left-hand side, since it's in north and west, is another active space. And are those going to be incorporated with some open, just green space also, where they can? I noticed it talked about a playground and so forth and so on. I'm just curious if there's going to be. I know you have some passive open space, but passive open space is just narrow strips. But it's just a narrow buffer till you get some of the other areas. So I'm just making sure we have plenty of just open green space for adults and kids, whoever's there. You said 10,000 square feet, and that's good, but that's a quarter of an acre. That's something so big. I'm just asking, are these other places going to be just open green space also?
Anywhere
I'll rephrase that. You may not know yet now. I'll rephrase that and encourage you to have open green
Yes.
space. How's that?
Yes, that's definitely an
That's a
adjustment
better
we
way
can
of
look
putting
at.
that. And also at the very top of this, the northern, that is the tree preservation. So that whole area is undisturbed based off what we have here.
Yes.
That is right. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes, sir. Couple of questions here. Have you got any idea far as the pricing you're looking at on single family or townhomes? You say market rate is, do you have a to-from figure in there you're trying to achieve? I mean, I want you to make all the money you can make off of it. So I'm not trying to.
Can you come to the mic?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm Dan Servideo with Saxon Real Estate. Thank you, everybody, for the time tonight. Appreciate it. Yeah, the price points will range, on the rental side from as low as, $1950 a month to as high as $2,800 a month. It'll vary by unit type, size, features, things like that.
Everything's going to be rental.
Was that?
Is everything going to be rental?
Built to rent,
I thought
yeah.
that's what you said, but I
Yes.
wasn't quite positive.
Yes.
So it'll be from, for example, a 2-bedroom home would be what?
So it's going to be all 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms is what we're proposing. So it's really geared towards servicing, a rental product for families, since so much of the apartment supply stock is limited to studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. So the thesis is to kind of serve that missing middle, people who want to live somewhere nice, have a full home, and maybe don't want to put down the down payment for a house or something along those lines. So for the smaller 3-bedroom ends, we'll go from, call it 2,000 to 2,200. Again, depending on, those features. The larger 4 bedrooms will go 2,600 to 2,800. Again, it might have a fenced in yard. It might have upgraded fixtures, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Go around the horn, Mr. Vance. Any other?
No. Quick question. Looking at the open space, the passive open space, have you thought about a dog park?
We did contemplate a dog park, and we landed on the playground for the active open space that you look towards the back of the site.
Okay.
But we do have a dog park shown along Auburn Church as well.
Because I couldn't read. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my last questions are for staff not to answer tonight, but I think it goes into that sort of revenue modeling for this type of project. It's easy to do on a for sale project. You can kind of run those numbers pretty easily. And I think they've sat through our whole night tonight and know what our main concern is, making sure we have product on the ground that is generating a lot of revenue for us as much as possible. And we benefit primarily from fewer residents and higher value properties. So I think that's more work we have to do to help provide feedback to you on what build out in this model works best for us. My other question, make sure I go through my list here. one, again, I would engage staff on some affordability conversation. We are hyper aware of margins and those types of things. We want you to be successful. We want you to come back and build great product. But we also want to have a dialogue, and it depends on the size of the project. But just engage us on that. That would be really helpful to us and our residents. And I have a question. Would it ever be an attempt to get a tax exemption for this project?
No.
Thank you.
And I will say we
have to ask the last guy.
We don't want to go through that again.
It's not a joking question. It's a legitimate question.
Yeah. Well, and I will say we have engaged with staff on the town's cost of services study. That is something that the team has looked at and evaluated, and we have looked at it for this project. And we do believe that we are well above the break-even point. But that is something that we'll definitely continue to work with staff and would love to discuss further.
Yeah, and I think it's just in addition to that, just some other, again, with the commercial element, property and rental, figuring out what that model looks like. And I think the other is really, for me, this R8 is not appropriate. So slightly fewer, wider lots is a better neighborhood, and it might cut you back a few units, but it actually is a better experience for those who live there and just driving through it. And again, not knowing it's rental, I had a different model. And the townhomes break out differently. They break out differently in a sales situation than in a rental situation. So I can't really lean on what research I did. So again, for me, the feedback is mostly the lot widths. I like the duplex thing. I don't think we've seen that. I mean, we had duplexes like this come in recently. I don't know that we've had that. It's an interesting product.
Recently we have.
Anybody else have any final?
Put a lot of color on your houses, so it's not
that would be nice.
White and tan, white, tan, white, tan. Make it nice out there. It'll help you do what you want to do. Master bedrooms on the first floor are quite popular in Garner area. I think it's 53% of their residents in that 55 plus range. I'm a little higher, and our legs aren't what they used to be at that downstairs master. That'll be a good selling point. Hint, hint.
We do have a commitment for minimum 15% having the first floor primary.
Smart move. Okay.
Yeah. I'd say look at it as an R4. See what that looks like for you. One more space, Mr. Stallings.
I just want to say, and I understand, especially if it's going to be market rate, that you have to make profit and you have to make your money back. But I will say, in terms of affordability, I know we're in a unique situation where we're right outside of Raleigh Cary's MSA. So I would say, personally, in my perspective, 60% of Raleigh Cary's MSA is not affordable. I think when Affordable Housing Task Force did their work, they looked at more at like a 50 to 55% lens when it came to affordability. So that's just my FYI and my perspective on affordability, if you're looking at any units that you want to designate as being affordable.
Mr. Bates? Good. No other questions? Any other staff comments? None?
Right. Well, we really appreciate it. We'll take this back and digest it as a team. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. I also told them we'll try to put them at the beginning of our work sessions in the future, so they don't have to sit through all the other stuff. But appreciate your patience.
When's the big day? When's the big day? May 11th. But y'all better get busy.
All right, thank you. Thanks everyone for their engagement and participation in that. We will now go over to manager report.
Yes, we have two reports for you this evening. First, your monthly development activity map update. I'll ask Mr. Triesenberg if he will walk us through any updates to the map.
Yes, good evening again. This month we have 4 projects to highlight for you. The first 2 are potential rezoning cases. The last 2 are just site plans, but again, we want to make sure that you're aware of these projects that are happening. So the first one that is in early discussions is an assemblage of property, again, we're back down off of New Bethel, opposite the Cambria development. We've called it the Gentle Rain potential subdivision for the street name that comes down through here. They are proposing at this time anywhere up to about 350 single-family units. Staff is in discussions with them about the different product types and mixes that may or may not be appropriate at this location. I will bring up the current sketch that was reviewed during that pre-application meeting. Let me see if I can, where's my,
45 by 145 foot wide lots, 215, good gracious.
yes, I believe that number, well, no, that's still the 350.
I'm reading on the chart on the table to the left.
But there has been considerable discussion about lot sizes and variations and all of that. But this is currently, again, what was evaluated. The site is a little bit unique with the way Gentle Rain comes down through this property and then is actually part of an adjacent parcel. It also backs up to Wren Road. So part of the discussions that we had with them is that until this property would be developed, there would need to be accommodations for traffic movement through the site from both directions, but still keeping in mind that in the future Gentle Rain would be connected through. There's the southern part of the site.
How many units are in that southern part of that development? I mean, yeah, parcels.
I'm gonna guess it's close to half.
We've run into this before without having access deep into projects like that.
Right.
And that may not get developed in the near future. It's a kind of a public safety issue.
Yeah.
Have that many
Yeah,
units
so
back
that's
there.
why the Wren Road connection as well as the Gentle Rain connection were key. And then maintaining the 2 points of access with whatever they ultimately decide to do going further south.
But that in a Gentle Rain extension, the terrain, the topography there looks very treacherous.
Yeah, I'm sure that the crossing would be
expensive.
Yeah. As
But
will.
I was gonna say, but basically they
this
gotta
one.
do the same thing with the road, because it's going through the same,
Yeah.
stream, well, floodplain, whatever you want to call it. They could have to pay, so we've got 350 units proposed. Aren't we getting close to maxing out the, traffic
Yes, we
capacity at
are.
New Bethel Church Road?
Yes, we are.
We've got to be all over it.
Yeah, and so that's been part of the discussion as well. So that one again, just keep in mind this has been very early. Just one round of comments from the pre-application meeting has been given, so we'll see how this one evolves going forward. The next one for a possible rezoning is a potential subdivision off of Ballot Road.
I have a quick question before we
Yes.
leave New Bethel. Do we have, or can you get to us what the traffic situation looks like at full build out for what we've approved in South Garner? Can we figure
We should be able to, because we have all the numbers, as well as access to. I'm not sure if the new traffic counts from DOT have come back out yet, but we certainly have the older ones, and we can ask our consultant to do a little analysis of that using some other market data that's available.
I go back to traffic capacity as a resource in that part of the town, and we have got another other conversations with some other projects in that whole White Oak 50 corridor, but we may have to pick and choose, or there may need to be concessions on size made for some of these projects.
Yep.
Either we pick one or two good ones, or maybe we spread it out across several. So I think getting a snapshot of what we've already approved and what those maximum capacities are, especially now also, are there any changes that would occur because of the roundabout in terms of flow? And I know there are, but have we been able to assess?
That's always a
improvement?
possibility. I need to talk with engineering a little bit about that a little more, but it's possible that additional slip lanes for certain movements could be added. I know at one time there was a discussion of perhaps a slip lane coming from probably from Hebron to White Oak headed east. Again, just depending on where the majority of those movements are expected to go. But that is a possibility. There are other improvements that still could be entertained.
So that would be helpful because it's that 50 White Oak, Bryan Road, all that, and they all got to go up there. And that stretch of of White Oak between Timber and 70 has the highest traffic volume in the entire town already. And there's probably not much relief coming for that corridor, regardless of what we do. So that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any other?
Okay. All right. So the Ballot Road proposal that's being looked at, this is just east of Guy Road, getting closer to the Johnston County line, just south of Edge of Auburn and Gatsby Station here along East Garner Road. Again, this has just been to a pre-application meeting, so very early. But here they're looking at what I would consider a fairly standard residential subdivision here, approximately 104, right around 100 single-family homes. Ballot Road is existing, so they would need to be, extending the road network and stubbing out where appropriate for adjacent lots for future build.
45-foot wide lots. Y'all do realize 45 foot's about for Mr. Hodges and Ms. Jones. Y'all do realize that, don't you? Just saying.
I'm sorry, what? I missed that. The lot widths are
45 foot again. I mean, that's about from Ms. Jones to Mr. Hodges.
Other comments on this one?
Question on the, Jeff, looking here and looking at the left where there's a lot of extra space, that cannot be developed because of the streams, the buffer? I'm assuming that's the stream is black, but is that a stream? Or? They're green, but I'm just assuming that's what it was.
That appears to maybe be just the limits of disturbance. There is a power easement or a gas easement that runs here.
Okay.
So that's a fairly wide, kind of cuts off that northwest corner.
I was just wondering why the corner was cut off. That explains it. Okay.
Right, yeah.
I see one entrance down at the bottom. Is there another secondary entrance?
Not in this drawing, but that would need to be looked at, yes.
Mr. Singleton said the lot widths were 45. Where is that? Because I didn't think 40.
On the site table.
Here it is. I was looking for it myself. That's why I was having a hard time finding it.
Are 45-foot wide lots allowed in R4?
So if they wanted to, they would need to propose that as a condition and come with some other type of offsetting some other alternative means of compliance for achieving the space on those side setbacks, which might be shorter block face lengths with more open space in between each group. which I kind of see that to a degree here on this side, not so much on this side. So that would need to be something that they would need to look at very carefully as well.
I think just the narrow lots create street parking issues. It just isn't enough room for a driveway. It just creates a cramped driving experience in these neighborhoods that have these narrow lots and small setbacks between the homes. The combination just doesn't make
On
for
single family, you might get enough room for one space in between. 18 feet for the driveway. Yeah, you can get one, but that is an issue.
The side setbacks on these, Mr. Triesenberg, are 5 feet, right?
I don't believe we have. Again, that would have to be some kind of condition where they propose some other mitigating, because I feel like the smallest side setback we have in the ordinance now is 6. I don't believe we have any place where 5 is a by right side setback.
12 from 45 is 33 feet wide, okay.
Yeah. Anything else on this one?
That looks like a ram and cram project would anyway. Because of the easements and so forth, that's what that is.
it looks like an R8 disguised as an R4.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Raven Cramp.
On the site plan side, those that are being reviewed by staff, 2 projects. The church here at the corner of Rayner Road and Waterfield Drive, Quest Fellowship Church. They are looking to do a considerable expansion to their facility that includes a lot of needed additional parking as well. So this was one that normally might just be, in some cases, it might just be a site plan modification. But because this one is essentially doubling the size of the church facility and doubling the size of the parking lot, it actually does require a full site plan. And I don't know that this one's going to want to come up for me here. It says it's loading. I will send this one out to you all just to make sure that you do have access to it in case this is not working for whatever reason, and we'll take a look into if there's something about this PDF that's making it difficult to load. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yes, the existing church facility is over here on the far right, along with their existing parking. So they are adding a whole new sanctuary. Like I say, it's about doubling the size of the existing building, and then all of this parking to be added along the north side of the parcel. So this level of investment in the property does require that they bring the whole property up to today's standards. So we will be evaluating their existing parking to make sure that it meets current requirements. Our preliminary analysis has revealed that things look pretty good. Doesn't appear to be one that's going to have to be reworked much, if at all. So some good planning back in the day, I guess, to set it up for the future. But that will be something that staff is looking at to make sure that the entire site does comply with today's UDO. Questions on this one? All right, and then the last one, just very briefly, hopefully y'all are very in tune here with the park project, but we do have a site plan in review for the Jurgen Park Office and Maintenance Building. Jurgen Park continues to move along at a good pace. But this is now in review to get the office building and maintenance facility squared away in terms of their location and access and parking, and making sure that it's integrated into the overall site. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Just one more on the 4800 Auburn Nightdale Road apartments. Is that new? Or newish?
3800.
Right below Auburn Station. Yeah.
Not new. I think this was one that showed up on an earlier agenda a few months ago. It's not a project that's moving particularly fast, but yeah, it has been on there for a couple of months.
Okay.
Yep. That's the one that had the mixed use component in 2 or 3 of the buildings, with the bank on the first floor and residential above.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I remember now.
Jeff, on Highway 70 across from Ditch Witch, next to the convenient mart, they've cut out all down in there. Is that a development they're trying to put down in?
That is I believe that is the senior apartments, the affordable housing senior apartments that the lady, if you'll remember, she was presenting, and she had connections back to the Old School Commons project. And she presented that to y'all, and the property was rezoned.
Yeah, I do remember.
She went to school here, I think she said too.
Yes. Yep. So yes, that is a I believe a 4-story senior low-income housing tax
Yeah, I
credit
remember
project.
that now, yeah. Okay. Any word on the out parcels at Cabela's for restaurants or what have you? You hear rumors about it, but...
So they have come in. I think they're dividing that old hotel site into 3 parcels, and I know that there's at least 2 of those that have been in review. One is Bank of America. The other one I think is a restaurant. I don't know that we have an identified user for the 3rd one yet.
What restaurant is that? Is that what they said?
Don't recall.
One's a sit-down restaurant. The other one they hadn't confirmed yet. I don't know the name either. I just know it's a sit-down restaurant.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. We will move on now to our town manager with pending agenda report.
Yes, thank you. So in your packet this evening, it's just a preview of your April meetings, and I'll sort of walk you through each meeting. As a reminder, this is a little bit different format than we've seen in the past. This is the 2nd month we've used this new format. It's because we are actually entering these items into our new agenda software as we're putting together and organizing the agendas at least a month in advance. And so what you'll see, instead of one memo that has the 3 meetings on it, you're going to see 3 separate agenda sheets, because these are actually pulling from the agenda system where we've sort of put placeholders in for some of these items. So looking ahead to your April 7th meeting, we're going to meet our new housing and community development specialist. Lewis Hurd will be joining us. He started with us last week, and I'm eager for you to have an opportunity to meet him. Comes with a lot of experience in housing affordability, and looking forward to the exciting work he's going to be providing to our team here and working with the town. Under your consent agenda, we've got several items. We've already got placeholders for everything from looking at getting started on our Meadowbrook Park Pond area and sort of that design work that we've talked about, and as a way to activate Phase 1 at Meadowbrook Park. Looking at amending our holiday schedule this year, the July 3rd, which is a big event, a big deal for us here in Garner, is on a Friday. July 4th is on a Saturday. Typically, that holiday would then be celebrated by employees on the 3rd in terms of our holiday schedule. we're proposing we move that to Monday because the 3rd is such a big event. It's all hands on deck for that type of event. So we just need to update the schedule for that. We've got some additional information regarding national opioid settlement, opting into that as well. We've got some no parking at edge of Auburn streets that our engineering team will bring forward. I will highlight originally number 5, we thought we were going to need to bring back to the council for approval amendments to the LMG master agreement to extend it so we can continue to work on this particular item. Council in previous actions has authorized me to go ahead and sign those extensions while we still work on putting the agreement together, of which that is in progress right now. So that'll be coming back in its full agreement to council in the near future. And then reclassification of assistant fire chief position. The chief is looking at doing some reorganization with his leadership team and would like to move one of his assistant chiefs up to a deputy chief, and we just need to amend the classification plan to allow for that. We also have a rezoning ordinance correction for rock quarry assemblage. We found that there was a typo in what was approved by council, and so we need to just go back and have that reapproved through your consent agenda. And then we've got some surplus property that we need permission to replace. Under your hearings, we have one hearing coming back as an SUP, Greenfield Parkway Light Industrial. So that will be coming back, a special use permit requested by Hunter Winston, Frompton Construction Company for the approval and use of warehouse and freight movement on over 36 acres. So that'll be coming back to council, or coming to council for a public hearing. And then under new old business, we have a tier 1 conditional rezoning coming back. This is the Lawndale project, and this is coming back to council for action. Looking ahead to your April 21st regularly scheduled meeting, we have a presentation from the Fire Rescue Department. They are working on updating their strategic plan as part of their reaccreditation process, and so they'll be sharing that work with the plan and that work with us at the meeting on the 21st. We don't have any items plugged in yet for consent on the 21st, but as you're aware, this is always a work in progress. Looking ahead at our agendas, looking under new old business, we've identified 2 updates we want to bring back to council. First are the results of our 2026 National Community Survey results. Sharing that with the community, with council, also talking about how we use that information in terms of not only strategic planning work, but also performance measures for the town, and how that helps guide some of the recommendations coming forth for the budget as well. So we'll be sharing some of those results. And then we've talked a lot about Jurgen Park today. We're getting close to completing that project, and so our Parks and Rec team will be providing an update as to what the operations of that will look like for our opening and use starting in fall of 2026. We also have several of our quarterly reports on your meeting on the 21st, your quarterly financial report, your quarterly capital project update, and then your monthly talk of the town. And the attorney is requesting a closed session as well on the 21st. And finally, your work session on April 28th. As we mentioned earlier this evening, we'll be bringing back discussions for the FY27 CIP and Horizons project. So this will be a continued discussion from earlier this year and from your retreat as we begin to narrow down what is programmed for FY27, but also how we plan for future Horizon projects. Coming back for continued discussions and updates is the Lake Vinson Park Master Plan update. This is actually something 2 retreats ago council started discussing and working on, and we want to bring that back for final feedback and updates based on some of the community engagement work that they've done. We've got to look at adding funeral homes to the NMX district, and so we'll be discussing that. Our planning director, Mr. Triesenberg, will be looking at how we amend this particular district to allow for funeral homes. And then we'll be doing our development previews, just like we've done this evening. So if we have projects who have reached out to us who want to have an opportunity to present their initial concepts to council, we will schedule and program them in for your work session. And then we'll also go over the development activity map. So that's just a brief overview of your what to expect for your April meetings. And as always, these continue to be a work in progress. And so as we get closer to those meetings, things may move or shift a little bit just to provide load balance for each of the meetings, but wanted to give council an opportunity to have a sense of what's coming ahead. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for town meeting? Just want to say thank you for all the hard work getting this information out. There's a lot work in progress, and progress is the key word, and it's good to see have some headlights out ahead at what's coming at us. So appreciate everyone's hard work on putting all that together. Next on our agenda are attorney reports.
Thank you. At your seat today, you should see a laminated Garner's priority of procedural motions. This came out of our Essentials Municipal Government course, where this part of this, well, both of these items come from the School of Government. However, I went through and made sure that they matched our newly adopted rules of procedure. And then thank you to our Deputy Town Clerk, Ms. Murray, who put this together in a nice package that you can bring to council if you have any questions about that. Again, it's to provide, rather than referring to the rules each time, to have an easy way of looking at what are the priority of different motions, as well as, what can be amended, what kind of vote, what kind of reconsideration is allowed. But I assure you it meets our current rules of procedure. So any materials you received at that training, disregard that. These are our local sheets. Again, I just wanted to update you. Last week, all three of your attorneys attended the Municipal Attorneys Conference. Ms. Spain and I in person, and Ms. Pierce did the online version. But it was a very good session. We went over talked about the different methods of providing police services and police liability issues, the state bar grievance process for municipal attorneys, which, as council knows, there's been some recent pro se plaintiffs who have made some allegations. I was able to confirm with the state bar deputy counsel who were there that none of them have filed any complaints against me. And then they will only provide information on that to each individual attorney. We also talked about emerging First Amendment issues, which really talked a lot about the public comment period and petitions and comments and guidelines that have come out of some recent cases about what can and cannot be regulated. We talked about the new web accessibility requirements. So there's new federal law that will go into effect in April for any municipality or government entity larger than 50,000 in population. And then our compliance deadline will be next year. So there's really a lot of work to be done, but I'd say in this case, the federal government was nice, and they're letting the big jurisdictions figure out how to do this, and then the smaller jurisdictions get some more time to implement those. But it will make sure that all of our digital offerings, whether they're on our website or any mobile apps we have, meet compliance for those individuals with disabilities. And I was a little bit shocked to learn that 26% of the population have some type of disability. So it will not only improve transparency and accessibility for everyone, but they do say that the more digitally accessible an employer is, then the more opportunities for a greater diversity of employees. We also, they discussed legal challenges in land use decisions, particularly with the challenges between legislative and quasi-judicial decision-making, and we received our typical legislative update that we give. So you'll be seeing some materials provided to both council and department heads out of this conference, and perhaps some additional suggestions about things we can do to improve our processes here. And then my last announcement is that in increasing our legal capacity in the department, Assistant Town Attorney Diamond Spain will be attending the Police Attorneys Conference in April as well, which is in Wilmington. So appreciate council's support of training, because these are very important that we stay on top of these emerging issues in different, both case law and legislative on the federal and as well as the state level. So appreciate that support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that update. Councilman Stallings?
I just have a comment. I just want to say it brought me a lot of joy to come to my seat and see the priority of procedural motions, anybody who knows me. So thank you so much, Attorney Jones and Deputy Clerk Murray for this hard work, because this is important, especially the maximum of 2 amendments. So thank you so much for this.
And it's big time. We got laminated procedural guidance here. I mean, we're big time tonight. Fancy stuff. Man, I never heard the one about, I move that we suspend the rules. We had to check that one out.
Second.
I don't recall hearing or seeing that in my time in doing this. I move we suspend the rules.
Legislature does a lot of that one.
They do, yes.
All right, we'll move along to council reports. We'll start down here, Mr. Matthews.
Thanks, sir. I'd like to compliment the staff, and I've seen Maria, but what a great showing for the extravaganza this past Saturday. If you try to drive through there, it was about like the July 3rd. The traffic was backed up, and so it obviously is well attended and has grown and grown, and a great thing for us. And even the alpacas were trying to get over there when I come to. So it was a nice little traffic jam. I know the chief is having nightmares over that one. And congratulations on all the improvements upstairs with the new offices. Anybody hadn't been up there, you've taken space and put offices where offices normally couldn't go. Now they've got offices and it looks good. So I know it's a temporary fix till we get the 3rd story built. So we'll see where that goes. But that's all I got.
Singleton.
Yes, I'd like to pass along thank you for Public Works for all the time and effort on the spring cleanup. It takes a lot of manpower hours. They get some interesting stuff. You rode by and saw some of the piles. I rode by where we had the polar plunge. And they had stacks of chairs at the curbs. I mean, really, drove out, they had them stacked up. I'm assuming that was to be picked up. I mean, they were taking advantage of the situation. But anyway, I do appreciate that. I know citizens always are complimentary of that. And we got it done before the Easter holiday. That was the issue a long time ago. We won't even get to that. But anyway, greatly appreciated the time and effort put into that, because we are one of the very few communities that even do something like that in Wake County. So pass that along, please.
Mr. Stallings.
I want to say I'm excited to see the Civic Academy launching. I plan to be in attendance. It's an amazing opportunity for the community to get involved, engage, and learn more about the inner processes of the town. So I'm definitely excited. So I want to thank the town manager and the staff for getting that initiative up and running, and I'm definitely excited about it.
I just want to say they had a great time with the Habitat elected officials bill that was held on March 20th. Out in the Gateway neighborhood, that area, Gateway Street, I think it's called. And it was just a great opportunity for bonding and building and seeing the hard work that goes into putting in homes for people who need them dearly. So it was a great time to just bond and network.
All right. I guess I still have council reports too. Just want to thank everyone who came out to the Garner Elite softball opening day on Saturday. It was cold in the morning, but I think Mr. Vance made it out there, Mr. Singleton, assistant manager Poole made it out, our police chief and fire chief made it out. It was good. It was the first one they had done since picking up rec ball. It was a good turnout. We navigated a couple of situations out there with the weather and the wind. Also give a shout out to Public Works for getting the field ready for that event in spite of the weather that had come through the night before. Also looking forward to Citizens Academy as well. And the Habitat thing was great too. If nobody has anything else, I'll refer to this procedures motion laminate here. And I guess I could call for a motion. Motion to adjourn?
So move.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I thought you said the other.